All right, we'll return to the meeting, to our open meeting portion, and we'll start the evening off with our pledge. Miss Holly Haynes.
Good evening. I'm Holly Haynes, the principal at Pester Elementary, and I am the luckiest principal ever to get to introduce these two handsome gentlemen standing by my side. This is Gavin Abshire, fourth grader at Pester, and his little brother, Grayson Abshire, kindergartner at Pester. They're 1 year to be together at school. Gavin, when asked, said he likes to draw dinosaur skateboarding, specifically dinosaur skateboarding when he's not at school. He plays baseball for the Hawks as a pitcher and a first and third baseman and sometimes a catcher. And the boys have twin siblings who are actually here tonight, 2.5-week-old twin siblings named Gatlin and Graham, and they are the most beautiful babies ever, and they're the best big brothers ever. Grayson likes playing with his dog, a golden retriever named Cosmo, when he's not at school. He is also a baseball player, but he plays for the Little Hawks, and he's also a pitcher. Their favorite thing about Pester, Gavin likes it that the kids will help you if you're feeling sad. And Grayson's favorite thing about Pester is drawing, recess, and lunch, all the important things in life. Yep, you got it.
I pledge allegiance
to the United
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Oh.
You remember me reading a book? I remember you. You were an excellent listener.
Thank you very much. That was awesome. Item 6 tonight, we have a special recognition for one of our trustees, Miss Ann Smith. Miss Smith's retiring. This will be her last official meeting. And I guess in some ways you're celebrating and others you're sad. Yes. Ann has served this district selflessly for as long as I can recall. I've been here for, I think, 16 years, and she's been a leader in serving since I've been here. I know of at least 13 years in service to the PTO. Served for 4 or 5 years on the Education Foundation, and has served 6 years on our school board. And it takes, many perceive what it takes to do this job. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of commitment from both her family, Ryan and Madeline and the others. It takes a lot of perseverance and toughness to focus on what's best for kids at the end of the day, which is why we're all here in our community. And Ann has done that with grace and poise and leadership and friendship and kindness and love and support for every kid she gets a chance to serve. I can't think of one time in a discussion, a meeting, a conversation, or anything that was self-serving for Ann. I've seen her continue to lead selflessly for this district and for these kids, and to continue to believe in excellence and knowing that modeling service to her kids and family is important to her, and knowing that serving the kids is important to her. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate getting to know you, seeing you work. I've enjoyed your friendship, and I've enjoyed serving beside you, and I know the rest of our board has as well. And so we give thanks tonight for that. There's not enough words to say, but we want to say thank you, and we appreciate you from the bottom of our hearts. We appreciate it. We do have a couple of items for you. So Amy, do you want to help me out with that? One of the traditions we have for retiring board members to give a picture of the Red Schoolhouse, which is kind of a, maybe not a trademark, but a symbol of Lovejoy, the original school that is now serving as the administration building. It's got a little message on the back from each board member and our names. And so we hope you'll display that proudly. I know you will. And thank you to her family as well for lending her to us for this time and for all that she's done. So, Anne, thank you so much.
So this has been my pleasure. It's been hard work. I'm not going to lie. I'm a PTO mom, right? And I give a lot of the credit to the PTO and the foundation. That's kind of how I got started. But you all have challenged me, made me better. I'm so proud to be for every kid. And I'm just grateful to make a difference in this community. So thank you to everyone here in Lovejoy that trusted me to serve you all for 6 years. And I'm excited for the next chapter. Somebody else is going to do some amazing work and take over this spot, and it's going to be awesome. So thank you.
We're going to get a picture. Let's get a picture real quick, and let's get one with you and your family as well. Yeah, and then we get one with you and your family as well.
Okay.
All right. Ms. Koenig, you're next with introduction of new hires.
Yes, we have 2 new hires, I believe. I'm going to ask Ms. Fuller to stand up over there. It is tradition in Lovejoy that we recognize our new hires and give them an apple. And an apple symbolizes, of course, their professionalism and education. We also give them a pen so they can start their next chapter. So, Ms. Fuller, do you want to say a few things about our BCBA there?
Absolutely. It's definitely my honor to bring to you guys Natalie Woodward. And she's actually been here since March 27th and has hit the ground running. And she is coming to us from Pennsylvania, but she was in Texas and went back to Pennsylvania and now is back. So she and her sweet son Cooper came down ahead of her husband and Madison and Cole, who will be coming, and the 2 dogs and the cat. But a fun fact, so just a little bit about Natalie. She graduated from Gannon University with her bachelor's degree and then her master's from Mercyhurst University. But she also was a water polo player at the collegiate level and recently was named in their athletic hall of fame at Gannon University. So any tips on water polo? She's our lady, along with helping us in the classroom with behavior. But it's my honor to have her here. She has definitely already, her impact has been very valuable in the classroom and supporting students and our staff.
It's my pleasure to introduce Sean Lewis. Sean Lewis is going to be talking about our powerlifting team, our 2 state qualifiers. I'm going to let him brag on the kids. I like to brag on him. You know, as we always do, right? Those of you that know Coach Lewis know the guy's involved in almost everything. And if anything from my office got done, he probably did it. He's incredible. You know, we talk about being a servant leader, and Shaw exemplifies that. Every time I turn around, he's volunteered for something, whether it's driving a bus or at the prom last night, or just finding ways to serve kids. And when we were looking at our powerlifting program, Sean stepped right up. Not only did he do a good job serving the kids, he found passion in it and went and got kids out of the hall, built a team, and made sure that those kids got an incredible experience. And we appreciate you, Sean, what you did. Thank you. You come on up and brag on those kids.
I want to introduce these 2 powerlifters. Coach Smith and I are very blessed to coach 2 state qualifiers this year. The time and commitment that these 2 have put in, because they're multi-sport athletes, they juggle a lot. Thank goodness for Coach Smith for being flexible with the schedule to train them, and we're so excited about these 2. The first one is Reese Wallace. She's a sophomore. She took first place at the 5A Region 6 powerlifting meet. Set 4 new PRs, and she advanced to the state finals. Reese placed 14th in state, so give her a hand. Second is senior Will Brown, who placed second at the 5A Region 2, Region 6 powerlifting meet, and advanced into the state finals, and placed 9th place at the state meet. We're excited about him.
All right, 6D is community recognitions for leadership, Lovejoy.
Yes, we are so very fortunate in our community to have such a high level of parent and community member involvement. We reinvigorated a program that had been previously here in Lovejoy ISD that had kind of taken a break during the COVID years, and that is Leadership Lovejoy. And it was an absolute joy and pleasure to get to know these community members and parents on a deeper level. We took these community members on a deep dive, and we went into all aspects of district functions, human resources, curriculum and instruction, our finance department. They rode a school bus, visited all of our campuses, and we had some really great conversations. And it was wonderful not only to get to know them as people, but have their voice at the table, those meaningful conversations about their experiences as parents, their children's experiences, that provided a level of dialogue and ongoing feedback. And so we're so grateful to have parents that, I didn't calculate the number of hours, but I bet if we did, it would be very impressive, because they gave up an entire day once a month to spend that amount of time with us. And that is one of the reasons that Lovejoy ISD is so uniquely special. We would like to recognize these individuals this evening. And so Roderick is going to call out their name, and we're going to ask him to come up, and we'll celebrate them in front of all of you.
Okay, so the first one is Marvin Bobo. Come on up. The Board of Trustees who led the entire group the whole way.
And then also had to
Yes, and breakfast. Cole Zahner up next. If you want to come get your certificate, and maybe we can do a round of applause after I call each name. Joey Spears. Jill Lamping. Crystal Lambert. Amy Campbell. Donna Johnson. Jonathan Webb. Aubrey Stock. And Charlotte Smith. And we have quite a few that aren't here, but you can find their names on the website. Val Turnbow. Any Warriors shirt? Lori Morrow. Your certificate? Yes. Val did. Val did RSVP. Lisa Peters. If you're on Leadership Lovejoy, come on up. You know who you are. It's okay. I believe that's everyone. Tracy's already wearing black, so Tracy Rockney also served.
All right, item 7, public comments related to agenda items for April 24.
Hey, good evening, President Owens and Board of Trustees. Tonight we have several public comments. Some of them are non-agenda items though, so I'll hold off on those. Our first one is regarding agenda item number 6, Jonathan Webb, if you want to step on up regarding Leadership Lovejoy. And I believe you've already read the public comments procedures, that you have 3 minutes, and we'll cut you off there.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Webb, and lived in the district for 8 years. I have 2 kids at Puster and 1 soon to be. My wife's also a periodic substitute for the district, and obviously I was a part of Leadership Lovejoy, and I did enjoy getting to get on the bus again with just like the kids. That was fun. Really, I just wanted to take a moment to thank and commend the board for their engagement in the community. So through frequent events, committees, and programs like Leadership Lovejoy, you have made me feel and know that I'm a vital part of the board's process and consideration. And as I entered Leadership Lovejoy program in the fall, I came in with an open mind, but also with a lot of concerns. I was blown away by Superintendent Cordell and the Lovejoy administration. They were peppered with questions constantly, every time that we met. And after each meeting, I walked away really impressed that every question was answered with a thoughtful, detailed response. They're truly doing their homework and leaving no stone unturned to support our schools. I felt very confident after every meeting. Considering the state of funding from Austin and the failed VATRE, I continue to have concerns about the state of our educational system. However, after leaving this program, I've told everyone who asks me that Lovejoy ISD is in very capable, trustworthy hands. So thank you for your commitment to us and for taking time to invest in us. We appreciate what you're doing.
Okay. Our next public comment is Ms. Michelle Von Rainsberg regarding an agenda item number 9. Michelle? Okay, thank you for clarifying. Okay, so our next one is going to be Mr. Jay Morey. If you want to step on up to the mic. Thank you for already reading our public comment procedures. It's regarding agenda item number 9.
Good evening. My name is Jay Morey. I've got 2 children that attend Lovejoy. One that's a sophomore, one that's a 6th grader. We've been here for about 7 years. I just wanted to quickly take a couple minutes, probably don't even need as much time as 3 minutes, but to talk about a recent resignation for one of the coaches at the high school, particularly the tennis coach. The main comments really are really regarding the one term of resignation. I don't think that's an accurate term, the way that the circumstances have played out. So quite honestly, it's probably not considered a resignation, and partly because, one, the main items that are in the tennis program are coming up here in the next week or two. I would not expect our tennis coach to resign 2 weeks prior to one of the biggest fundraisers that we have, and also our tennis banquet. Secondly, the other part that really troubled me more so was the procedures in which this happened. If we're getting to a point where a team member that's at the high school level is not going to be with the program anymore, the feedback mechanism, from what I understand and what I've heard, is lacking. If this decision was made to help the students really were never even consulted. The parents weren't consulted. Not that you have to consult them, but opinions, booster clubs, nobody was really notified. Nobody was even communicated to. If you would have had different opinions, and I think you would have learned a lot more about the program itself and the coach itself, and maybe these decisions wouldn't have been made. So, the main takeaway is, I think if decisions are going to be made about people's employment, you should consult the folks the students that are actually learning from these teachers, especially the tennis team, who's with these teachers a lot. I spent a lot of time with them, and I don't think that was done, and I think that's a failure on our part. So I have a minute and a half left, but that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Mr. Owens, that is all of the public comments we have regarding agenda items.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Hang on just a minute before you start speaking. What is your name?
Matthew Shoemaker.
Yes. Okay, I believe that was a non-agenda item. Give me just a moment.
And technically, the previous gentleman shouldn't have spoken under agenda items either, but if it's about the same thing, then it's non-agenda. Is it regarding tennis?
We have some that on here that's.
It'll be non-agenda then, okay? All right, if you would, please bow your head and join me for the invocation. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to serve. Thank you for each of the parents that are here to work hard for excellence for kids. Lord, thank you for giving us the gift to do that. And thank you for the respect and dignity that exists amongst all these families who serve here, who work here, who bring their kids here. We all want the same thing, Lord. We pray that you would just be with us in our deliberations and help us to work through these things and do our best. In Christ's name, amen. All right. Next item is 9A, notice of resignations. Ms. Koenig. It's a notification item. You have the document in your board book. Item 10 is our consent agenda. Would anyone like anything pulled for further review that is in our consent agenda tonight? If not, then I would entertain a motion.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
So moved, Amy Smith.
Second.
Second, Marvin Bobo. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. All right, item 11 is our presentation on our celebration of learning. Dr. Tinsley.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Mrs. Fuller and also our team, our dyslexia team, to come forward. We are celebrating the work of the dyslexia therapist here in our district, and they are going to enlighten you with some insight on what they do to support our students who are enrolled in this program.
I get the pleasure of turning it over. Heather Fisher is one of our special education coordinators who dyslexia has definitely been a huge piece of the work that she's done here in the district, not only for the student side of the house, but also our dyslexia teacher training. Across from me are our amazing therapists, not all of them, but some of our therapists are here, and some of our students that get the opportunity to work with our therapists each day. So they're going to shed a little bit of insight of what happens down there in the multisensory room of dyslexia with the Take Flight curriculum, but just a little bit of data, because sometimes people wonder, well, what does that look like? Right now in the district, we are serving 109 students who are actively receiving services in the dyslexia program, and that's generally a 2-year program. And I say generally, sometimes we have students that need a little bit more time, and we definitely let them take that time to be able to finish the program. Our therapists also do a fabulous job, and right now there's 57 students that are being monitored. So once they finish that 2-year program, they're monitored 2 years out by the dyslexia therapist to make sure that those skills that they have learned in that particular setting are continuing to be pulled, and that the accommodations that are in place for them are working. So they also attend many meetings to be able to help support and give insight, whether it's a 504 meeting or a ARD meeting, to help give insight from the dyslexia lens and around accommodations. So the work that they do is never ending, but they're probably the most excited, kid-loving group that you will find. So they're a little nervous, and that's because they get the opportunity of working in front of students all day and not necessarily a group of adults. So I'm going to turn it over to Heather. She'll get us started, and then you'll get to hear from our therapist.
It is truly an honor to celebrate our dyslexia program. Our dyslexia program really is amazing because of our phenomenal students. They are resilient and determined and have made tremendous progress, so we are very excited to celebrate them. And you are going to hear directly from our students this evening. Our dyslexia team, we have many of our dyslexia therapists here this evening. All of our dyslexia therapists are CALT trained, which means they are certified academic language therapists, and they have attained the greatest level of training and are very dynamic in their delivery of therapy. Take Flight is the curriculum that we use. That is a research-based curriculum that was designed and authored in the labs of Scottish Rite. And Take Flight is designed to deliver all of the components necessary for literacy intervention. Our therapists deliver a full cycle of therapy daily that includes support in the phonological awareness, phonics, the reading fluency, vocabulary development, and reading comprehension. And they do so in a therapeutic way that uses a multisensory approach. Their therapy is cumulative, systematic, direct, and very diagnostic to meet students' needs. Not only does this build proficient readers, but our therapists are very intentional to support a love of reading in our students, as well as to support all of their needs kinder through 12th grade. And Ms. Topchick is going to just share very briefly on instilling a love of learning of reading in our students.
Hi, I'm Yaz Topchick. I'm the therapist at Sloan Creek, and as Heather said, I was asked to speak on how we try to implement a love of learning with our kiddos. They come to us really not liking to read at all, so it's really important for us to try to help them gain confidence so that they hopefully will enjoy reading on their own. One of the things that we ask is that they partnered with their parents at home, and the reason for that is to help them model what reading should sound like. Another thing is to allow them to read books that are very easy for them, because we want them to feel like they are confident. It doesn't matter if it's easy, it's that they just are confident in what they're reading, and that helps them work with prosody, which is correct expression and phrasing. We also ask parents to ask questions to their students while they're reading, because then it helps build comprehension skills and works with their memory. And then lastly, we allow them to use the use of audiobooks, because there has been research that says that when you're reading the text while you're listening to it, it helps with fluency, vocabulary, and decoding.
Hi, I'm Tamara Sakuda, and I am a dyslexia therapist. I start my day at Hart with my littles, and then I go to high school, my big kids, and then I end the day at Willow Springs with the wild kids. No, just kidding. They're actually really good. I got my start in middle school. No, so I'm here to talk about the needs of the secondary student with dyslexia, because most of the times kids are identified early on. This district's awesome at doing that. We do have some kids that both are monitored, as Ms. Fuller was saying before. We monitor some kids because dyslexia is a lifelong neurological learning condition about the ability to process language. And we see it most readily in a difficulty in reading. We see it in secondary students with their reading speed is probably not as fast as their peers. So what we look at is how do we best support these kiddos, both some kids that are actually not identified until high school, and then some kids get identified, but they're still working through, there's always going to be some issues with language, okay? So one of the things I try to tell my kids, it's not you, it's your brain. You are perfectly intelligent. One of the things about dyslexia is kids are extremely smart, but their reading and their language ability doesn't reflect that. So we have to try to ameliorate that with accommodations once we put them through the therapy. The single biggest support we can give to high school students is extra time. High school students with dyslexia need extra time. They will always take longer to process text. Okay, I'll say that one more time for the folks in the back. They will always take longer to process text, because that's what I tell teachers all the time. There's sometimes a concern that, well, we're giving them an advantage. You're not giving them an advantage if you give them extra time. You are leveling the playing field for them. So we just need to make sure that we always incorporate that. Data has told us again and again and again, if you don't know the material, extra time is not going to help you. If you're a dyslexic student or a student with a language issue, that extra time gives you a chance to adequately process the material. So that's the biggest thing that we do. And then I really try to partner with the teachers and the students and find out every child is unique, so what they need help with for them. For some kids, it's reading the text to them. For some kids, it's extra time, other things. But extra time is the single biggest thing we can do. All right, we'll let Ms. Shambaugh take it away.
You're about to see a video clip of Take Flight in Action, and this specific clip, you can go ahead and start it, is the phonological awareness component of Take Flight led by Ms. Shambaugh.
We will begin PA2. For our procedures, we will look and listen, echo, unblend and pull down the sound. Vinegar. Excellent. Show me slide.
Correct it. Just a minute here.
In PA2. We will begin PA2. For our procedures, we will look and listen, echo, unblend and pull down the sound picture. Vinegar. Excellent. Show me slide. Slide. Job. If this is slide, show me slime. Slime. If this is slime, show me climb. If this is climb, show me clam.
So the students have the same sound pictures on their tray that Ms. Shambaugh is manipulating on the smart board, and they're manipulating the sounds in the words based on the sound pitch.
Show me lamb. Lamb. Bull. If this is lamb, bull, show me.
So now we have real live and in person. Ms. Shamba, that portion was the phonological awareness, and Ms. Shamba has brought a group here that is willing to participate and model for you their connected text. This is a great portion of the Take Flight lesson because it allows the students to now demonstrate reading proficiency that they have practiced.
So we have 3 friends here tonight to model for you. We practice the explicit skills we learn in Take Flight in connected text. So I'm going to first let them introduce themselves. And we love to do our connected text on the floor. So Sancy got us a blanket. So we're going to model for you right in front on the floor. Is that okay? Today we're going to be reading the book, Mr. Bill's Class. And as we're reading, we'll be thinking of our accuracy and our fluency. We'll put hard on that in Take Flight. But at the same time, we're going to do something unique to Take Flight. We're going to use our W's chart to help us monitor our comprehension. So, Aiden, tell us about how we use the red and the green. How about the blue and the purple? Okay. And then what about the Y and the Y? Sticky notes, and when we see one of these elements in the text, we'll just place that on the page. Okay? All right, we'll begin. So do we have a who? Who is it? Mr. Bill. Do we have a where? Yes. A pickleback tree. Would you like a pickleback tree? No. Somebody else? Is there a new who? Yes. Who is it? Natalie. And do we have a new where? Yes. Where are we?
Mrs. Bill lined up desks and chairs and books. Lined up 4 very sharp pencils. So, then he heard a loud cry. Small dog ran through the door. A big dog with hanging hat followed him. Fifi, Bruno, heel. The boy behind them cried, I'm Ricardo, told Mr. Bill. So, Ricardo, said Mr. Bill. Dogs are not allowed in class. That's not one of the rules that said, Ricardo said. Bill Dog jumped on Mr. Bill's desk and said his name was Juan. No, Fifi, Mr. Bill said. That's Bruno, Ricardo said. And Fifi over there, she knows Mr. Bill.
And Matthew, what were the 3 rules?
Quiet, please, Mr. Bill. Meet and tidy, move to the class.
All right, were they obeying the rules? Do we have any new who's?
Yes.
Who are they?
Bruno.
Where are too. Yes. Ella, what do you think their acting is like? It's so good. Spot, if I knew, right on the real fast. It's right on under his foot. The suit, and he his face. Whoop. Set the card up, Ella, Ted, Fred, and Ed, all at the same time. Whoop. He added, it took a long time to clean up and find someone to take the dog. Then Mr. Bill said, now please take a seat. At the same time, a bell rang. It was time for the social support. School was over for the day. Is there a problem? Yes. What is the problem? He wants to get better teacher. And it was a successful. And so why is that a problem? Because really want to be. Mrs. Bill watched the performance with those staff. And everyone had pieces. They juggled, they found the students were listening to. Everyone was on the move. Dogs from their rooms. People flew through the air, kites flew. And there was Madame Lagoon in the middle in charge of it all. And that gave Mrs. Bill the next step. After we had been sold, he asked Madame Lagoon if he could go over. When the bell rang, Mr. Gill smiled and erased the whole rule from the room. He knew he didn't need them to teach his wild circus class, the greatest class on earth. So what's the problem solved? Yes. How did he solve the problem now? He changed the way he taught. So you'll use our different elements. Who was the main character? Mr. Bill. And what did Mr. Bill want? Alleviate freedom. What was the problem? He wanted it. And but how do we solve it? Changing the way we taught. All right, so let's think about things. What can we as people learn about life from what happened in school? Never give up. Never give up. Sometimes we think outside the box, right? And did we? Yeah. Great job, guys. Thank you, lady guys. They're amazing. Let's give them another round of applause.
All three of you are amazing readers, and I'm wondering if you're available for Back to School PD in August. We need that book in that session.
All right, great job. Exhilarating of reading, but a little bit of reading for you here. This is our annual announcement on continuing education of the Board of Trustees. Under State Board of Education rule, completing required continuing education for each year of service is a basic obligation and expectation of any sitting board member. As board president, I'm required to announce the name of each member who has completed the required continuing ed, has exceeded the required continuing ed, and is deficient in meeting the required continuing ed. The requirement for training are measured as of the first anniversary of the date of the trustee's election or appointment, or 2-year anniversary of his or her previous training as applicable. There are 7 training areas for board member at continuing education: local district orientation, orientation to the Texas Education Code, post-legislative update to the Texas Education Code, team building, additional continuing education, evaluating student academic performance and setting goals, identifying and reporting abuse, trafficking, and other maltreatment of children. To the extent applicable to each board member, I will announce the completion or deficiency as to the required training. For members who still have time remaining to complete required training, I will announce those board members who have scheduled timely training and those who have not yet scheduled the training. At the conclusion of this announcement, I will announce any board members training in excess of the continuing education requirements. Local district orientation, the following first-year board members who completed the local district orientation training. Julie McLaughlin. Orientation to the Texas Education Code, first-year board member Julie McLaughlin has completed the orientation to Texas Education Code. Post-legislative update to the Texas Education Code, no board members were required to complete the post-legislative update. Team building, the following board members have completed the annual team building training. Barrett Owens, Amy Smith, Ann Smith, Marvin Bobo, Jeff Wood, Jason James, Julie McLaughlin. Additional continuing ed. The following board members have completed the additional continuing education requirements. Barrett Owens, Amy Smith, Ann Smith, Marvin Bobo, Jeff Wood, Jason James, Julie McLaughlin. Evaluating student academic performance and setting goals. Barrett Owens, Amy Smith, Ann Smith, Marvin Bobo, Jeff Wood, Jason James, Julie McLaughlin. Identifying and reporting abuse, trafficking, and other maltreatment of children. Barrett Owens, Amy Smith, Ann Smith, Marvin Bobo, Jeff Wood, Jason James, Julie McLaughlin. Board members who continuing education exceeded. Barrett Owens, 1.5 hours. Amy Smith, 9 hours. Ann Smith, 6 hours. Marvin Bobo, 11.5 hours. Jeff Wood, 2 hours. Jason James, 12.5 hours. Julie McLaughlin, 37.25 hours. That concludes our report. All right. Item 13 is consider and act on the super annual evaluation. As it being a part of her employment file, it's not something we discuss publicly, but I would tell you that we were happy to evaluate Ms. Cordell. Continues to do an amazing, excellent job as our leader, and has done an outstanding job for us. So with that, I would consider a motion or any comment.
I move that we act on the evaluation of Ms. Cordell,
So we'll accept the evaluation.
that we will accept the evaluation.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion was Julie and the second was Jeff Wood. All right. Item 14, consider and act on the Chief Financial Officer, Senior Director of District Support Services, Director of Special Education, and Principal of Willow Springs Middle School.
Thank you, President Owens. I am excited to be recommending 4 outstanding leaders for your consideration this evening in regard to leadership of our schools and district. The first one on the list is Caitlin Eldridge, who is currently serving as interim principal at Willow Springs Middle School. Ms. Eldridge, prior to serving as interim principal, was assistant principal at Lovejoy High School. She was a teacher in Lovejoy ISD, taught Spanish, and then she also served some time in Frisco ISD as an assistant principal. She is joined this evening by her husband, Jeff, and her 2 beautiful daughters, Maggie and Olivia, this evening, who are dancers, I hear. Yes. So we have them here this evening. And then we also have, we're gonna go through everybody first, and then we'll bring people up after the board has an opportunity to take a consider and do a motion. We then have Special Education Director recommendation, who is Allison Claunch. Allison actually serves currently as a coordinator of special education here in Lovejoy ISD. She was an elementary school teacher, an instructional coach, and an assistant principal. We are so fortunate to have her leadership already in this district and excited for her to expand her impact. She has her beautiful son with her this evening, Eli, who turns 4 this summer, I believe. And Eli actually attends our Lovejoy Child Development Center. I see you, Eli. And so we love that we get to see Eli walk in the hallways all the time. Makes us smile. We also have our recommendation for Senior Director of District Support Services, who is Kyle Percival. Kyle comes to us from Allen ISD, where he currently serves as Director of Safety, Security, and Transportation. He started his career as a special education teacher. He has served as an assistant principal and a principal. I think he's covered all levels, elementary, middle, and high school, so he comes with a ton of experience. And his wife, Melissa, Melissa is an educator in Allen ISD, and Kyle actually already has a family of leopards because his two sons, Grant, who's in the 11th grade, and Grayson, who is in 7th grade, have been Lovejoy leopards since 2021. We also are recommending this evening Thomas Willman as CFO. Thomas currently serves as our Senior Director of Finance, and he has had the longest interview, I think, known to man. So we're really sure about Thomas, that he's going to do great things because he's already been doing great things and has been instrumental in a lot of the financial progress we've made in restoring the fund balance and increasing our efficiency while keeping a mind for effectiveness. His wife, Jamie, is an educational diagnostician, and he has the two most beautiful girls, Aubrey and Emery. And Emery is also part of our Lovejoy Child Development Center program, and so we get to see her beautiful smile all the time. Which absolutely makes our day. And so board administration is recommending approval of our principal for Willow Springs Middle School, chief financial officer, senior director of district support services, and director of special education.
Comments or questions, folks? If not, I consider a motion.
I move that we approve all these positions. Is that good enough? I don't have to read them off again? All right, fantastic.
So move, Marvin. Second, Julie. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Awesome. Welcome aboard, folks. Thank you for being here. Y'all come on up. All right, item 15, consider an act on employment agreements and Chapter 21 Chapter 21 contract recommendations, round 2.
I was making sure Thomas got a seat over here. Oh, I love the handwritten. We're going to have to do better for you next time.
Yes.
We'll be
I
more
hope
that
prepared.
wasn't a reflection on Kevin's confidence about tonight.
Yeah, put it in there, so, yes. Yes, yes.
Yes, we are recommending another round of contracts, employment agreements, and Chapter 21 employment contracts. I have put the list, another list in your, it will be published tomorrow in the board book, but I handed that to y'all earlier in closed session. So I am making a recommend approval of the employee agreements and Chapter 21 employee contracts for that list that you have.
Any questions, folks? Otherwise, we'd consider a recommendation.
Move we approve this round 2 of Chapter 21 contract.
Thank you.
Second. So move Jason James, second Jeff Wood. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Item 16 will be, there won't be any action taken on closed session items tonight, so that will be waived. Item 17, consider an act on K through 5 math instructional materials adoption.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Aaron Perkins to come up tonight to assist with this presentation. The workshop this month, we shared with you that we were going to be bringing forward a recommendation to approve K-5 instructional materials. Just a reminder as we walk through this, when we look at instructional materials, we start with our standards, our curriculum standards, which are the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. And instructional resources help support our curriculum documents and execute the text. So a timeline that we followed according to board policy is that we began this process in January. We had input from teachers to look at 2 instructional resources that the team felt like aligned best to the curriculum standards that are set forth for K-5 math courses. The adoption committee was formed, and we used a district rubric to evaluate the process and evaluate the materials, There's an opportunity for community to review the materials that we were recommending. And so we are prepared now to bring forth a recommendation that we believe Eureka Math aligns to our district's core beliefs, as we shared last month in our math instructional framework. And it will support, it's another great support, not just for seasoned teachers, but for new teachers that we felt like would serve as a great primary resource for math, K-5 math. So we are requesting approval to adopt Eureka Math Text Edition as a primary instructional resource for all K-5 mathematics classrooms and courses.
If none, we would consider a motion.
I move that we approve the Eureka Math Text Edition instructional resource for K through 5 classrooms.
I'll second that.
So move Marvin Bobo, second Ann Smith. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. We appreciate the update in the board workshop too. It gave us what we needed to be efficient. Consider an act on the Alpha Best Child Care Program MOU.
Okay, I'm going to ask Maren to stay up here again. She and Amanda Puckett have been working on looking at some options for our child care program. And again, I brought this forward. We shared with you at the workshop. The why behind this is that we were looking for affordable child care opportunities for our LISD families and staff. Currently, we offer childcare options for after school and during the day for pre-K through 18 months through age 4. And so what some of our challenges have been is that we have not been able to meet the demands that we've had, particularly with our after school programming. We've had a pretty significant wait list. Part of that is staffing challenges that we've had. This model that we are currently doing, because we are operating that through Lovejoy, it has been revenue generating. So we wanted to make sure when we were looking at options that we could still sustain that in some ways. So what we looked into is an Alpha Best after school program. And the benefits that we see is that it would, with what the company can offer, we can increase enrollment and reach the needs of our families and our staff. It does have some flexible options that we were not able to offer, to where if a family wanted to have 5 days a week, 2 days a week, or 3 days a week, they could do that. Again, we were not able to do that just because of staffing. It will extend the hours by 30 minutes for families who do have work hours that long. And then we would also, what we can offer is that with our additional student holidays that we have in our new calendar, those teacher planning days, that we can offer affordable childcare for our families and our staff that are interested in that as well. So what's unique about AlphaBest, and this is an expansion of the program that we've not been able to offer, is that it does provide some enrichment opportunities, as we shared last meeting with you. They do have some leverage with staffing that we are not able to access, where they have a much broader range of recruitment and efforts. They are licensed under the Texas Child Care licensing requirements. Their staff does require training, and they also have a site director that they assign to our district that oversees the program. And we also, because currently our staff that are currently working the after-school program, they will have the opportunity to be employed by AlphaBest as well. So just a few changes that we are moving forward, and actually there's one error on here. After we made some contract changes, but currently our registration fee is $50. We are going to maintain that $50 fee for 23-24. I think we were needing to increase that if we had not gone with an outside group. The monthly tuition that we're currently charging is $300. That would be increased by $20. And the student holidays that I was referring to for a full day, that would be $40 per student. We will continue to be able to provide the 50% reduction rate for all of our employees if they elect to participate. And as you can see here, there's a slight decrease in the projected revenue, but we felt like because if we could serve more families, this was minimized. So again, we brought this forward April the 11th, and we are seeking approval from you. You have a MOU there that we've drafted with AlphaBest to engage in a partnership with them. Any questions?
I have one. Could you elaborate on what we understand AlphaBest's approach to be for students who receive special education services?
Absolutely, and I'm going to let Aaron has been in more in-depth conversations with that. So we did have some specific conversations about that. Aaron, you want to elaborate, please?
Sure. They provide all of their staff with training to serve students with that are served by special education supports. And they also, one of the great things that we liked is that they wanted to be in contact with the campuses. So they want to talk to, with parent consent, they want to talk to the administrator or the teacher to find out what's working for that student at school so that they can provide a bridge from the campus to the after-school program. And they are very much willing to partner with parents and us as a staff here, and then of course the campuses too, to serve students.
Is this just a one-year agreement? Do we have any protection against costs drastically increasing down the road if we go down this path?
It would be a one-year agreement. Based on the history that we have talked to some other districts that are currently using AlphaBest, there has not been a significant increase in cost. So they can't promise us that, but it seems to be minimum if there were any increases. And districts can adjust that because some of that can increase revenue for districts. Some districts don't do it for revenue purposes, so it can vary from district to district too.
Because it looks like what we receive is a flat percentage of their overall revenues. So
Correct.
if they were to increase it, it would increase what we get as well. So,
correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions? All right, if not, I consider a motion.
I move that we approve this memorandum of understanding with AlphaBest for aftercare services.
So moved, Julie McLaughlin. Second, Jason James, all in favor? Opposed?
Thank you. We're going to begin some parent information meetings with AlphaBest soon, so I think we're going to be launching that this Friday. So we're excited about the opportunity.
All right, item 19 is a presentation on gifted and talented programming updates.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Bree Smith, our Director of Advanced Academics, and she also supports gifted and talented programming, and she's going to provide you some updates that we are planning to put in place for the 23-24 school year for Sloan Creek. So I'm going to hand it over to Bree.
Thank you. Good evening, President Owens, Board, Ms. Cordell, staff, and community. I'm pleased to be here this evening to talk about gifted and talented services in Lovejoy. And before I get going, I just want to say thank you again for your continued support of all students in Lovejoy ISD. It means so much to each and every one of us that's here. So thank you very much. Gifted and talented education is defined by the state of Texas in the Education Code, Chapter 29. You'll see that we do identify students in Lovejoy that exhibit a high capacity or performance capability in an intellectual, creative, or artistic area. In Lovejoy ISD specifically, we look at intellectual ability, and that may be in a single area or additional areas. It may be a student that excels in a specific academic field or has high ability and performance in all areas. In the 22-23 school year, we shifted the model of services at the elementary school to be interdisciplinary in kindergarten through third grade with a pull-out teacher, and that time served commensurate with the grade levels. We moved our fourth grade students to be served in all areas. So all fourth grade students this school year received services in math, science, English, and social studies. That is regardless of their area of identification. So for example, a student may have been identified for math science services, they still received all of the services. And that kind of mirrors what's happening at the K-3 with interdisciplinary. They're receiving math, science, English, and social studies instruction, but it is not the teacher of record at K-3. At fourth grade, it is a teacher of record, so you have a math science teacher that is providing all instruction in those two areas, and then you have an RLA and social studies teacher that's providing all instruction for those students that have been identified for GT services. That has been a very successful model this year. We have had lots of comments from both students and teachers and parents about how much they appreciate the opportunity for students to participate in those areas. We have seen an abundance of cross collaboration between the teams at both elementary schools. If you recall, a couple of weeks ago, I shared with you the successes of our GT showcase, and almost all of those fourth grade research projects and performance tasks were done cross-curricularly between the two teachers. So that was really a great demonstration of what that can allow when all of the students on that grade level are receiving instruction from both of the teachers. 5th through 8th grade stayed the same, and 9th through 12th served by identification there. So no changes this school year. Beginning next school year, we will roll up that model of service of serving all students in all four core if they have been identified for GT services. So 5th graders coming in will just continue with that service the way they have received it and are accustomed to receiving it. And then 6th grade will also receive that service. On the screen on the left-hand side, you can see an example of our 4th grade students receiving all services in 4th grade. They'll continue to receive all of those core courses in 5th grade, the difference being that they would have a teacher that's providing math, teacher providing RLA, teacher providing social studies, and teacher providing science. 6th grade would be a little bit different. The way they have been served this year in 5th grade is students who are identified for RLA and social studies have been served by 2 different teachers, and then GT, science, and math also served for 2 subject areas. Some students have been receiving RLA and social studies only, some have been receiving science and math only, and then some have been receiving all services. Moving into that 23-24 model, we would have all students receiving all 4 core services. So that right-hand side of the screen shows that sample core of courses. We do have advanced mathematics at the 5th and 6th grade level. Just to give you an idea of students impacted, there would be 4 students that would be coming into the advanced math classroom before our identification process is completed this spring for new testers. And those students would be set up with support strategies prior to the end of this school year, contacted by the teacher with any skills that we would like to see them practicing on over the summer. And then of course, once school starts, any areas that we see as identified needs would be the focus for success tutorials and additional instruction by the teacher. That's really what we've always done for students new to that service. So no difference there, with the exception that these students would now be joining our newly identified students. There are a lot of benefits for students. I think I already highlighted a couple of them. This really provides a great continuum of services, and that is the goal of the state plan, that we are offering a continuum from K through 12. This aligns nicely in building that up through the intermediate school. It supports the state plan for the instruction in the 4 core areas, and then again allows for that cross-curricular collaboration with students. We have heard from our students. We've seen what they can do when they are working together that way. So it's really a great opportunity for them. And there are, of course, benefits for our staff members who are part of these teams. It builds capacity among our staff for PLCs. It also allows for leadership opportunities for our teachers. It maximizes the scheduling flexibility because you now have teachers that can work across the grade level with all students and are teaming to be able to provide the instruction for GT students as well. So you also, I've mentioned it, it's repetitive, but I can't say it enough. You have that opportunity for cross-curricular teaming to continue high quality instruction. We want to make sure that all students have the opportunity to grow and produce professional level work commensurate with their age, of course. And this is just another opportunity to do that. Questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Item 20 would be our 2022 evaluation of accelerated instruction program for STAR EOC.
Yes, so the Texas Education Code 29.081 requires each district's board of trustees to hold a public hearing for public discussion to evaluate the effectiveness of the accelerated instruction program for STAR end of course assessments. So I'm going to provide a quick overview for you on what we are doing for accelerated instruction to support students to be successful on the end of course assessments. And then I'll ask you to go into a public hearing for that. So just to give you an idea of what our end of course assessments are, typically in grade 9, our students are going to take English 1, Algebra 1, and Biology. We may have some students who may take Algebra 1 in 8th grade, but this is typical at the high school level. Grade 10 is English 2, and grade 11 is U.S. History end of course assessment. They're administered 3 times per year, which gives students multiple opportunities to retest who have not yet met passing standards. So just to give you an idea, in a 4-year period, you could have that number of retakes if necessary. So a student could have up to 10 opportunities to pass English 1, Algebra 1, and Biology, 7 opportunities to retest for English 2, and 4 opportunities for U.S. History. And as you can see, it's due to the time that the grade level that they take those exams in. So as I said, we're required to provide accelerated instruction and then hold this public hearing. To give you an idea of where our focus has been is that we look at the program structures and the way we're designing learning. We're looking at our student participation rates and then ultimately our performance rates. So the findings from the spring 2022 end of course, so this is a year from last year, this gives you information on the number of passing rate we had on all testers, how many of our students actually tested, and then how many retesters we had, and then how many retesters that we had that actually passed. And then we, here in Lovejoy, what we offer for remediation is we offer during and after school. During school might be during leopard time, after school could be, or before school could be tutorials. And then of course our Center for Academic Training, known as CAT. We choose not to offer a digital learning platform. We would rather have that face-to-face with our teachers. So then our students that retested in summer of 2022, we had 17 that took the test, 5 passed. So those additional 12 that did not, they had the opportunity to take it again in the fall. And this just gives you some information about when the retests occur, and how long the sessions are as far as remediation or the accelerated learning. When we offer that, of course, it's not a cost to students. We're required to offer that. So findings from the fall, we had 22 take English 2 and 18 take English 8, means 18 take English 2. And then as you see there, if it's 10 or less students, it's not reported, just for identifiable purposes. And we did offer for the English 1 and 2, we also offered reading labs in addition to leopard time and then the during and after school tutorials. So that's just an overview of what we are doing. We just completed another round of end of course this week, or last week, was it? We've got STAR testing going on last week and this week. So we hope we had some more higher passing rates. So any questions about the presentation before we go into a public hearing?
At this time, I'll open a public hearing on the 2022 evaluation of accelerated instruction. Do you have any comments or inquiries about? No comments tonight. Board, any comments or conversation? At this time, I'll close the public hearing. Item 23 is a budget workshop number 6.
Good evening, President Owens, Board of Trustees, and Mrs. Cordell. Tonight, as part of the budget workshop number 6, we will share an update on our progress on the continued development of the 23-24 budget process and the financial implications for the following 2 years. And then we'll answer any questions following the presentation. So throughout the budget development process, we continue to keep the priorities of maintaining a healthy fund balance, employee compensation, attendance, and enrollment at the forefront of our process. During our planning and budget development, we are faced with responding to funding challenges and creating a budget that will retain Lovejoy's legacy of excellence and retain, recruit, and support our teachers and staff. So our assumptions in our M&O budget, or maintenance and operations, have not changed since the last time that we came together and reviewed it, with the exception of 3 items. 2 of the 3 are highlighted. At the end of our zero-based budgeting, our administrators and budget owners did an excellent job of really truly identifying those costs that were seeing inflationary increase, and we were able to reduce it to a 3% increase rather than a 5% increase. So we saw a reduction in our expenses there. But we will continue with the 2% annual after that. We also reevaluated our approach when it comes to our contingency. We do believe that we need to have a contingency in place, but we didn't think that we needed the 1% of recurring revenue. So we changed it to a fixed $300,000 annually there. And then we also incorporated in this budget model an increase of transportation fees and implementing extracurricular fees. So when we look at what that means for our budget and bridging from last month, Budget Workshop 5 to Budget Workshop 6, last month we presented a deficit budget of roughly $649K. As you can see here, with a deep dive into our revenues and incorporating the fees for transportation and extracurricular, we also are aware of some grants that we'll be receiving from the foundation. So we incorporated the grants related to security, but then also did a deep dive and see how we're trending with our facilities rental income and our interest income, and increase that slightly to increase our overall revenue by $911,000. We also did a deep dive into the different programs, and through attrition, we're able to restructure. Like for instance, with the finance department, we are restructuring the finance department to eliminate one director position, and then reducing my former position as a senior director down to just a financial analyst, which brought a savings of about $70,000 to the district. And then with the additional about $176K through the reduced contingency, and then also the inflationary decrease from 5% to 3%. So that gets us with a surplus budget proposed as of right now of roughly $671,000. So when we talk about the additional fees, last month we had brought the different scenarios for athletics and fine arts, and then also transportation. What we've incorporated here is a $250 extracurricular fee for both athletics and fine arts. So what that means is essentially it's one fee. You can participate in 2 athletic events and still pay just $250. And fine arts very similar. But if you do both, in this assumption, if you do both, it would be, so if I did athletics and fine arts, it would be $500 per year. How we approached it is currently we have about 57% of our secondary students that participate in athletics and fine arts. So we applied that same percentage, 57%, to our declining enrollment of what we anticipate going forward in our secondary grades from 7th through 12th. And then on the transportation fees, we incorporated a $100 increase from our $350 to go to $450. In our current fine arts budget, we anticipate that next year we'll have about a $1.7 million budget for athletics and fine arts. And these fees would help support those costs as far as salaries, transportation, fuel, custodial, maintenance, and all the other indirect costs that we don't see that happen after each of the events. And then with our transportation, we anticipate that our budget will be $1.3 million for next year. So we feel that the increase in the transportation fees would help offset that $1.3 million, considering that the state only funds us about $185,000 for transportation. So when we look at our 5-year model here, you can see that in 24, proposing again the $671,000 roughly, which would get us about $125. And we can say that we have somewhat of a viable budget going forward. Even though we do have a deficit in the next 2 years, we still in 25 can maintain well above the 90-day and keep a healthy fund balance. And even in 26, we improved by $1.4 million from last month and about 31 days of fund balance. So as it relates to just monitoring the 88th legislative session, House Bill 100 has moved, or I'm sorry, is favorable within the House and will be considered on the House floor on Wednesday. So we went ahead and ran that through our model to see what that financial impact would be. So the things that we were able to incorporate, because it was pretty clear on kind of the cost structures of it, was the increase in the basic allotment by $90 in 2024, and then $50 in 2025. Which also requires that we put 50% of that gain towards teacher salaries. So between that and the significant raise in the minimum salary schedule, we also then incorporated a new salary schedule for our teachers that increased our cost. And then in here, we also increased the transportation funding to $1.54 per mile on the special ed side by $1.28. Some of the things that were not incorporated that could be potential revenue increases, but we just didn't have enough information to be able to run it through the model, are listed here, such as the new advanced math pathway allotment, update to the special education funding, and then also the change of the special program allotments to enrollment. We're also hearing that even though they're going to change that to enrollment, that they may change the weight factor, the rate, so it may not necessarily be an increase because of a change to enrollment. It may just be more of a wash. So we didn't incorporate that into our projections. It has been also said that, that there will be a floor amendment that would also increase the small and mid-size multiplier that could benefit us. We just don't know what that is. So when we look at that projection with the increase in basic allotment, we can see that we have a slight increase in our surplus going from 670 to 911. Again, this does incorporate a significant change into our salary schedule, which would be additional increase in teacher pay. And then even more valuable going out to 26, even though still a deficit budget, we're still well above the 90 days that we require for fund balance. Yes, it did. And there's also something stating in one of the Senate bills that if we pay recapture by February early, they would do a 10% discount. So hopefully that can be pushed through. Yes, so that would help. Some of the other bills that are that we're monitoring as far as financial implications to Lovejoy ISD are mainly geared around the transfers of students. So when we do Senate Bill 8 and Senate Bill 418 and then House Bill 4148, each one of these would remove the ability for the district to charge tuition for our transfer students. And this would have a financial implication of $1 million to our overall budget. Senate Bill 8 has passed through the committee in the Senate and is headed to the House. Senate Bill 418 is left pending in the committee. And then 418, I believe is scheduled for public hearing tomorrow for House Bill 4148, sorry. Senate Bill 418 is the only one that really impacts the prioritization of the transfers, where it would impact our state funding, where our special education students are a priority, and then employee kids are like 7th on the list. So that would potentially impact our funding by 1.4 million. And then as far as next steps, we have one more regular board meeting to review the budget before we bring it for adoption on the June 19th board meeting. In the next meeting, we're still doing a great deal of work around our salary scales across the board, looking at our hourly staff, and then really diving in to make sure that we've captured everything we've said that we are doing as far as programmatic changes, and that our staffing levels are appropriate. We're going through it a fine-tooth comb, going through it again for the 4th or 5th time, just to make sure we've captured everything. We also anticipate bringing the student nutrition and our debt service budget for review on the 22nd, so you can see what we're doing there in our debt strategy. And that is everything from the budget. Any questions?
So just a few comments. This is budget update number 6, I believe.
Yes, sir.
So just for the public, some of you I don't always see here, but glad you're here tonight. You're not here for this, but you get to listen anyway, which is great. So we've gone through 5 different budget workshops, and tonight we're looking at opportunities to evaluate how to balance our budget. Last week we looked at a budget that was about last month about 300,000 negative. And then tonight we are looking at the option of adding fees, increasing our transportation fee and adding an extracurricular fee potentially to see what alternatives we have to evaluate balancing the budget. That would be obviously a change to charge for extracurriculars and to increase our busing fee, which is not something we're looking to do at all. But at the same time, we have to keep in mind the circumstances around our budget. And so I think just giving some feedback to administration tonight on where, some direction or some thoughts, vetting those out around these extracurricular and busing fees. And we have one more budget workshop. We will be adopting this budget before we really know what happens with the legislation for sure. So we won't know the answers to that other than just assumptions or educated guesses, really, especially if it goes into special session. So just to remind the board and the community, that's part of what we're looking at tonight. And hopefully we can have a little bit of discussion about that here and tonight. From my own perspective, I'm not excited about adding extracurricular fees, but at the same time, we've got to make sure we maintain viability going forward. The failure of our legislature to address some of the funding needs that are core to the existence of public schools, especially property-rich schools, recapture 1 and 2, the basic allotment in a more meaningful way continues to be troubling from my perspective. Disappointed is an understatement, especially when we're running billion-dollar deficits that they will not return to us. I believe the last estimate I heard was around 40 billion. And so surplus, my apology. You knew what I meant, surplus. So, I'm more in tune to even adopt although I'm adamantly against it, a minor deficit budget versus adding the fees right out of the gate at this point, because we have so many uncertainties. Now, might we need to add them very quickly after we understand what the legislative actions might be? I think that's a high likelihood. Certainly not too interested in rolling deficits, especially when we continue to be focused on getting to a viable fund balance, which we've been able to accomplish in the short term. Obviously looking forward though, long term, not so viable. So just some thoughts to vet out. No real major, just observations, I guess, from my perspective as I'm thinking about things.
So I'll comment on that. I think there's a huge concern with adding fees, especially with the secondary program. When you have people giving money to the booster club, then you have a fee. Is it gonna cause problems with people donating, all that? So my thought is, can we wait till we know what happens in the session? Or how much time do we have, I guess, is the question for Thomas, right? Do we need to do something immediately in June when we pass our budget, or can we see how this special session goes? Because we're pretty sure it's going to go to that, right? So how urgent is the matter, I guess is my question.
I don't believe it's, urgent that we pass, an adopted budget. We can always do a budget amendment once we know more about the legislative session, and then make those decisions later after the special session. Hopefully it doesn't go there, but we could do that. Always submit for a budget amendment.
I mean, I think this is just, this is a workshop, so we're here to discuss different options and to find out what levers are available for us to pull. We know one of them would have been the VATRE. That did not pass. Going into this session, given the levels of inflation that we've all experienced since 2019, I hate to be a downer, but I was expecting a lot more in terms of the increase of the basic allotment to provide long-term, or at least through this next biennium, flexible spending on a per student basis. But, I think one of the early bills we talked about would have increased the basic allotment by $1,000, and that might have gotten us close to the inflation numbers, but not made us whole. And instead, we're talking about a $90 increase instead of a $1,000 increase, and we're talking about a $50 increase the year after that. So as we'll discuss in the legislative update, increasing the basic allotment is akin to a silver bullet in that it does do multiple things. Number one, it provides flexible spending on a per student basis. Number two, it would have the effect of reducing our recapture. And so those things go hand in hand. And right now, there's just not a lot moving the needle in Austin to do those things. And so that's troubling. And so that leaves us with, what do we need to do to maintain our priorities, our budget priorities as a board, which is to have fund balance for financial sustainability, and to, be able to do the things we need to do for teachers, and be able to, we haven't passed a deficit budget since I've been on the board. The administration has done tremendous work in creating efficiencies and in reducing our expenditures. And we just haven't seen the increase on the revenue side. And so we're kind of treading water, basically. And so, I'm open to discussion about other options if there are any. We've been talking about them for 3 years. I don't know what those are other than some of the things that we've been talking about. At this point, I can't expect much additional help coming from Austin. And if it does, it won't come until perhaps the end of the summer. So I just think we need to be open-minded and have discussion and welcome feedback from the community too. We need to, well, not during the meeting, sir. Yeah, you can't talk during the meeting except in public comment, but emails, things like that. You guys know how to reach us and how to give your thoughts. But we've had a community group of stakeholders along with teachers and administrators called the Financial Sustainability Committee. And they've looked at all these options and they've presented recommendations. And some of the things we're talking about are those recommendations.
Just echo the comments here. I don't think anyone is excited to add fees, but I think the transportation fee makes sense to me if the district is subsidizing 2/3 of that program. And so I guess one question I have for that is, I think I understand in your budget has $100 increase, so roughly $50 per semester is kind of what we're thinking for that fee. Okay.
That's good.
And then on the extracurricular fees, when would we think that we might have a little bit more detail on what that might look like? For example, maybe a family cap or a comparison for those fees that are already being charged. That sort of thing might give us a little bit of a sense of what the impact might be to families. I missed you saying it. Does that start in 7th grade? Is that when we are starting to count those forward? Okay.
That's correct.
I think I'm a little cautious to add a fee real quick, kind of last minute, because I think that might be a little shocking to families. So I hope we can continue to always have it as part of our discussion and dialogue, so it's not a real surprise if it's something we have to implement. I think as long as we can be open and bring it to the forefront that it's not necessarily something we're doing right now, but we may not have any other levers, and we don't want it to be a surprise if this is something we have to do that none of us want to do. But I would love to give some lead time if possible, as much as we can.
I think Ann's concern is real on impact to booster clubs, and the support that they provide to a lot of these programs is hard to measurable. They do so much, and that would be obviously, and then I also worry a lot about how it would affect participation numbers, and that's the last thing we want to be thinking about. So it's important to start having these conversations, but I think we're going to have to take a very pragmatic approach. And I know gathering data of other districts that have gone down this path is probably challenging, but as much as we can gather data from other districts that have gone down this path of charging these types of fees would be very helpful.
No, absolutely. We've started that process, so we'll be able to bring that to the next regular board meeting.
So to piggyback on that, I'm sorry to keep going back to the booster club thing. There's concern if you generate a fee, where does the money go? Does it go to the general fund? Does it, say I'm in band and I give money because my kid's in band. Does it go to band? Do the band people know when I pay my fee, it supports band? Or does it go into general fund and then they're worried because they're worried about giving money to the booster and to the fee? You know what I'm saying? We don't want to cut off our heads. So I guess I just want to make sure y'all are thoughtful and careful because it's just tricky, right?
Yeah, no,
So-
absolutely. And we do value the contributions from our booster clubs and don't want to disturb that in any way. So we are looking at how these fees would go directly back into the programs to cover those costs that are currently within our budget.
Thank you all.
Maybe like a side note is I don't have anyone in high school or 7th grade, so I don't know. I haven't experienced that yet, but I know with my 5th grader, we do write a check to the district for supplies, like for art class and stuff like that. So I would also just be curious if there, in addition to Booster Club, but are there district fees that this would be in addition to, or
Thank you. If there are no other comments, we'll move on. Thank you for the update, Thomas. All right. Kind of in line with that is our, well, this is different. Okay. Item 24 is a Lovejoy 2030 update. I got off one line.
Thank you, Mr. President and Board. Tonight, I have an update on our Lovejoy 2030 strategic plan. And if you will recall, last school year, a group of about 100 stakeholders was a part of this process, both through the Lovejoy 2030 Strategic Planning Committee and on the Financial Sustainability Committee as well. I'm going to work real hard just to hit the highlights this evening. Let me make sure I can, okay. There we go. So we're starting off in our section that focuses on teaching and learning. We want to make sure that we provide learning experiences that support high levels of student learning and growth. We know instrumental to that is strategy 1.1.1 that talks about professional learning communities. That has been a priority for us over the last year, and we've prioritized time for our teachers to collaborate in this manner in our master schedules, as well as had district-wide training on response to intervention to support our students. And we're looking forward to bringing teams of teachers along with their campus administrators to a PLC Institute in Fort Worth in June, because we know having highly trained, highly collaborative educators is one of the best ways we can go about serving our students. And then if you look down there in 1.3, where we are focusing on ways to support real world success, and one of the ways of doing that is making sure we have quality assessments to make sure our students are learning at high levels. You all might recall a celebration of learning where we had an elementary and a secondary team that modeled for us on video that professional learning community process of making sure we know each student by name and need, and then support them by student by standard. We also are working towards implementing a district balanced assessment plan, which would make sure we have all the elements there, that we have the formative assessment that's done in the classroom, the common formative assessments, which are designed and then analyzed in those PLCs, as well as making sure we have a district-wide assessment system to make sure our students are making progress. And if they're not making progress, then we are providing support both at the campus administrative level, but then also from a central office to make sure we have that on track. And Dr. Tinsley and her team have done a great job of researching and then securing resources through your support for the implementation of MAP assessments for next school year. And so all of you will continue to hear more about that, but that will be a key component in building out that balanced assessment plan. Then moving on to strategy 1.3.2, we know that writing is critical to our students learning at high levels. Our vertical teacher teams, which are new this school year, have been focused on that effort, the writing across the curriculum. Also 1.3.3, making sure that we are addressing our retest and late work guidelines. This is a high topic of conversation. We have not made a lot of changes this school year. This is still under review and study. What we did find in going into this school year is that we did not have clarity and alignment even on our current guidelines and expectations. And so what we did is we did some renorming and made sure that everybody had clarity about what our expectations in that area really were, and that we were all working in alignment with that. We have actually formed a committee to do a deeper dive into that work. And so that further review is underway for consideration of some possible changes for next school year and possibly beyond. Moving into our graduate profile, we have a wonderful graduate profile that we want to make sure all of our students build not only the academic knowledge and skills throughout their time with us in the school district to achieve, but also those soft skills or those future ready skills. And in order to do that, we have to provide them with those rich, hands-on relevant learning experiences. So part of that is emphasizing that graduate profile, talking about it, lifting it up, and using it as a touchstone for our work. One element that you will see it very much reflected in is the new math and literacy instructional frameworks that have been shared with you. We also have a student superintendent connection council, and they worked very hard over the last several months to take that very complex graduate profile and distill it down into some essential attributes that they could share with any student, whether they be in kindergarten or first grade, and those students would understand it. And they did just that. And recently we went out to Hart and Puster Elementary Schools together and shared this with our kindergartners. We gave them a little gift. They got a little Lovejoy leopard, and they got a coloring sheet emphasizing these attributes in our graduate profile. I felt bad, and we owe all of our kinder teachers a big apology because it was a super grandparent move. We showed up, got them all excited, gave them a gift, and then we left. So we're sorry, kindergarten teachers. But that was really fun, but it also served as a really significant reminder that our students learn and grow so much during their time with us, and we have to be really deliberate and intentional about that path all the way pre-K through 12. And then something that we're really proud of that we've highlighted on here is our focus on service in our school district. And Sloan Creek has been an exemplary example of that. I don't know if people know, but they on Fridays assign student and teacher teams to do extra custodial help to make sure our custodians don't have quite so much to do, which is so impactful given the custodial shortage. And some of our custodians not only do what they need to do at one of our schools, they'll do that and then they'll finish up and they'll go continue to work somewhere else. And so I want to celebrate Sloan Creek for all of their commitment and giving service in that area. We have so many examples of that throughout the district. I'm going to move on to strategic target 2.3, where we're preparing our students for college and career. When we look in this area at some highlights, we have been studying the senior project. There have been some things that were streamlined this year. We did some improvements in regard to communicating with our students, making sure that was readily available, as well as the resources were there. They refined some things with letting the students do some digital recording of those presentations, and then additional study is planned for the future, because we think we can make some deeper connections there to both our graduate profile, but also to our future ready skills that we identified through the Lovejoy 2030 process. When we look at college and career counseling, we very much prioritize this because we added back a college, career, and military readiness counselor at the high school. Ms. Thrash, has done a phenomenal job of making sure our students have the resources and the guidance in that area. And then we also are working to improve our high school course selection process. And so internally, we had some work that we needed to do in making sure that process was much more collaborative. And it very much was this year, and it started much earlier because we know if we don't start on the front end doing that, then our students don't have the information they need, and our parents don't have the information they need for that selection process in a timely manner. So curriculum instruction, as well as our high school counselors and administrators, really collaborated on that to get that in line. So we have a vastly improved high school course selection process and course guide as well. And we were able to publish that earlier. I'm going to move to legacy of excellence. And this is where we want to make sure in strategic target 3.1 that we're valuing those community partnerships. And we have done just that. We're working towards establishing partnerships. I think very soon here we'll be bringing the My Community Credit Union MOU in front of you for your consideration. A lot of collaborative work's been happening in that area, and this will provide additional opportunities in the financial area for both our high school students, but also pre-K-12. We're working on some financial literacy resources in partnership and curriculum in partnership with MCCU. And then we also have launched a district volunteer portal because we know we have vast expertise in our community in regard to parents who are professionals in all different areas, and how can we better leverage that for our students' learning in the classroom. Then in strategic target 3.2, when we're looking at that postgraduate success, we know providing
service and mentorship not only is so good for our students in regard to being servant leaders, it also builds all sorts of other leadership and soft skills. In addition, when you're serving others, you generally feel a lot more positive and optimistic about the world. And we have so many examples of that. Our PALS program, Reading with the Leopards, Ready, Set, Teach, Best Buddies, Pause. Our high school students, I don't know if people know this, they help facilitate so many of our summer camps for our younger students, both in athletics and fine arts. It's really incredible. Our students in those camps sometimes end up with an almost 1-to-1 ratio because of the high school students working with them. And then our high school students also volunteer at so many campus events. I don't know if you all have noticed a lot of times at our Fall Family Fun Nights or STEM Festival and Science Nights that often our high schoolers will come down and volunteer their time. And what I have learned too is the students don't think we're that cool. They don't pay any attention to us when they've got one of our high schoolers. They're guiding them in their learning or guiding them in that fun. And then we are looking at best practices, alignment in that area in regard to discipline, getting that more uniform across our campuses, focusing on positive behavior incentives, as well as development of a behavior framework, much like the math framework that we brought to you previously. We're going to be doing something very similar in the area of behavior to increase that K-12 alignment in that area and make sure at each level it's developmentally appropriate, but the clarity of our expectations moves through all the different levels. And so we have already reserved time and have started planning for this Fall Academy Week, which is where our teachers get a lot of professional development, as well as prioritizing and penciling in parent communication and student communication to include classroom meetings as well. Moving into 3.3, we have hosted an alumni event. We did that at homecoming in partnership with the Foundation for Lovejoy Schools. We had a lot of fun at that event and are grateful for the foundation for their support. And then we also have implemented something called Alumni Spotlight. And so occasionally in Connect with Katie, or our weekly newsletter, you'll see one of our alumni in there and the incredible things that they're doing. So if anybody knows somebody who's a graduate of Lovejoy High School, please share and their contact information with us. We'd love to highlight them. Moving down to target 4.1, making sure we have that holistic balanced technology plan. Very proud of the work that we've done in this area, and very much want to thank John Korb, who's our new Director of Technology. He's done a lot of work in making sure we have a inventory, that we have a formal cycle of renew and replacement developed, as well as securing INS funding for student and teacher devices. John has done a great job. He calls it probably back there, he calls it the road show. And he brought out, board, you approved the funds for us to be able to purchase a device for each teacher to make sure that they have a laptop so that they're able to collaborate in their PLCs and have that device with them, but also they're able to bring that back and forth from home because we want their work to be supported with the best tools. What John did is he vetted a number of different devices and brought, how many, John, did you bring to each campus? So all teachers got to get on the 5 devices, test them out, and see if they were going to work for them, and then they got to give some feedback, and that'll be used in regard to what the final selection is. So I appreciate him very much taking the time to support and honor teacher voice. He also did a great job on the fiber lease, because we've indicated, you can see right there, one of our strategies was to look at where we could have some cost savings, and he renegotiated that, and so we're going to have some big savings in that area, about $11,000 per month. And then strategy 4.1.5, that's safeguards and digital citizenship. We now have digital citizenship lessons developed and implemented, as well as securing additional student devices is going to allow for a decreased use of personal devices. And that's a big deal because we have things on there like Go Guardian and other tools that allow us to keep our students safer and monitor what's going on those devices. We also have been streamlining software, looking at where we've got software that's redundant or has low levels of use, and then engaging in strategic abandonment of those software tools if that's necessary. And then if you see there 4.2, we want to make sure that we are utilizing our existing facility space to be more collaborative and efficient for future learning needs. And you'll see right there, we've got a priority on looking at our capital assessment, our capital assets, including our buildings. And so we have formed a committee, a capital planning committee. They're going to meet in May. And then we have engaged with PBK Architects to do a formal capital needs assessment. And that is well underway, and we want to thank our principals for the extensive time each of them spent with the teams from PBK to go through their facilities as well, so that we can get a plan for the future. And then we've got future ready. We've talked about this many times, how we want to make sure our kids are college, career, military ready. So strategy 5.1.2, looking at dual credit opportunities. We are very proud that we have added a dual credit option for our students next year in the 11th grade that already has over 100 registrations, student registrations, and that's for that dual credit U.S. history. We also are establishing those business industry partnerships. I mentioned earlier MCCU, as well as that portal. Moving into future ready skills, Bree Smith did a great job earlier of highlighting our GT showcase. That was a wonderful example of future ready skills being built with our students, emphasizing things like our third grade living museum and safety crew, and looking at our curriculum documents of where we can enhance this even further. Talent acquisition, retention, and support, involving our teachers in giving us feedback on what are some creative compensation that aligns to district goals. And we utilized feedback through our Superintendent Teacher Connection Council and our teacher vertical teams. And they helped us look at and emphasize what was important in regard to an enhanced compensation plan. Some of that included looking at TIA, which involved the implementation. We had to get T-tests in place, that evaluation system for our teachers. We have surveyed staff formally for TIA, which is that teacher incentive allotment program the state has. We have a pretty mixed feelings on that from our teachers. We had about, what, Anna, about 51, 49, about 51% of our teachers are not in favor of moving forward with this state program because they feel like it works against collaboration. And then also it is just an extremely arduous process. And so Anna's done a great job of looking, is there an easier way to go about this that's less cumbersome? And so we are investigating the national board certification as an option as well there. And we're continuing that dialogue with our teachers. And then non-monetary options for communication. One of those that is very big is the extended teacher planning days. I will tell you, in talking with Anna as well as our principals already out there recruiting, that is making a big difference. While our compensation might not be as competitive as some of the other school districts, we are having some luck with that value we are putting in support we are putting on teacher time. And then we offer telehealth. And then Anna Koenig did a great job of renegotiating benefits to provide additional supplemental benefit insurance options at no increase. So we appreciate that. And then we feel very strongly about our employee transfer bus, because that allows for our employees to be able to have arrangements for their children, either to come to them at the end of the day or to come over to the Child Development Center. And that really helps them have that work-life balance. And then when we move down to strategic target 6.3, supporting our teachers and growing our staff members. And when we look at professional development, that is so key to our effectiveness. Our professional learning calendar was, I want to applaud our C&I department. For the first time ever in Lovejoy, the professional learning calendar for the entire year was communicated at the beginning of the school year, which is so important because it allows all of us in our unique roles, including our principals, to make sure that they're aligning their work, their priorities, and their time in support of teachers in what our goals are for this year. And then we also have restructured Learning in Lovejoy and Academy Week to allow for deeper learning as well as team time to plan for implementation. And then financial sustainability, which you heard a little bit from Thomas. Very proud of our work in this area, and it continues. Implementation of staffing guidelines. You're going to see in this section, and I'm not going to repeat myself, but you're going to see master schedule over and over and over again, and that's because 83% of our budget is represented in personnel. And the only way we can really affect that number that Thomas shows us in terms of current budget and budget development is getting more efficient in regard to utilization of our personnel units. And we've done that at the central office level, and we're also doing that on the campus level in regard to our master schedules. And that is a ton of behind the scene work. And so I want to thank our principals for that as well, as cabinet, for everything that they've done in that area. To give you an example of how much these staffing guidelines have made a difference, last school year we had about 600 employees, and now we have about 530 employees, and we were able to achieve that without a formal reduction in force. So we've gotten much more efficient over time. And then you heard Thomas mention earlier about restructuring that we've done at the central office at any time we've had a resignation or a retirement. We've also done a formal review of employee calendars to make sure that employee contract calendars and the number of days they're working truly aligns with their job description and with their job function. And so we're making some adjustments in that area. And then also making sure we have updated job descriptions to go along with all of the restructures that have taken place to increase effectiveness and efficiency. And then again, you see master schedules. You'll keep seeing master schedules throughout. And then I also wanted to highlight on here the very last one, strategy 7.3.2, when we talk about the importance of utilizing and aligning the district and campus improvement planning teams, districts committee and team, so that we're making sure we keep that student experience at the forefront. Our district improvement plan is now aligned with our strategic plan, and then all of our campus improvement plans are now aligned with our Lovejoy 2030 strategic plan. And then we have engaged stakeholders in multiple ways through our Superintendent Teacher Connection Council, Superintendent Student Connection Council, teacher vertical teams. We have an MTSS core team. So we're very much wanting to make sure we have our stakeholders around the table, whether that be internal or external stakeholders, because we know when we get around the table and we collaborate, it means good things for kids. What questions do you have for me?
I appreciate the update. I think people spend a lot of time on the strategic 2030 committee doing a lot of hard work. And when you're part of those committees, you hope that it's actually going to have impact in the future, and that a lot of that work's going to be ongoing and revisited and putting the plans they laid out into practice. And this is showing where we really are making an impact and making some positive changes. So I appreciate the update.
All right, moving on. Thank you for that update. We're going to take a quick break to hit the restroom. We'll be back in 3 to 5 minutes. All right, if we could return to our seats, we're going to return back to the meeting. Item number 25 tonight will be our board legislative update.
I got it.
No, it's okay. Just an update from our last presentation. Since the last update, the board visited Austin on April 12th. We were able to have some important meetings with the staff of the Senate Education Committee Chair, the staff of the House Education Committee Chair, Speaker of the House, and Lieutenant Governor's Office. We were accompanied by Raise Your Hand Texas, which is a public education advocacy group that's privately funded, and also Hillco Partners, who we've engaged to get us some meetings and also keep us apprised of the daily activities going on in Austin that have an impact on Lovejoy. We continue to review bills and present different information on the impacts potentially to Lovejoy. And I think Katie's also sent around a Lovejoy community legislative update in her most recent Connect with Katie. Coming up, there's about 35 days left in the session. We're going to continue to monitor bills from House and Senate Ed committees and evaluate those as they apply to Lovejoy. We'll be communicating key opportunities for Lovejoy community members to get involved once bills, key bills, either advance out of committee or voted upon by full House or full Senate. We expect to be down in Austin again, probably certainly before the end of the session, and if it goes into a special session, then thereafter as well. Next slide. That's us on April 12th in the Capitol. Everybody's smiling. Okay. The only update to this slide on the calendar is, like I said, we'll continue to update bills that potentially impact Lovejoy, ISD. And then we also had the visit to Austin on the 12th. This slide kind of summarizes some things that are concerning in terms of public education funding. This graphic is meant to demonstrate that the school voucher issue and the basic allotment issue and the recapture issue are all interrelated. Now, school vouchers, you've heard that term before. They're calling it educational savings accounts in this session, or also some tax credit options, but basically what they are the same thing. They take public tax dollars and they seek to use them to subsidize private education, private schools. This is concerning, and this is how it relates to the basic allotment, in that and as mentioned earlier, legislators have still not meaningfully addressed the current public school funding disparity. Yet an estimated an educational savings account program is estimated to cost the state over $1 billion within 5 years. Instead of that funding going to public education, it's going to be given to be used in private education. What this actually does, instead of its intent in subsidizing private schools, they want to create school choice. They're actually taking away public school choice or minimizing public school choice. We mentioned this earlier in the budget workshop. There's really not sufficient proposals for increase of the basic allotment. As I went through the small proposed increases, those will not even come near to addressing the inflationary pressures that school districts across the state have felt in recent years. The other thing that's happening, instead of basic allotment increase, which provide flexible funding, we're seeing a lot of funding coming with strings or with only being dedicated for specific purposes. And for instance, Senate Bill 9 proposes a teacher increase for classroom teachers. I think would be up to $6,000 for school districts the size of Lovejoy. It's a one-year thing. So there's no funding mechanism to take it beyond the 1 year, one-time, essentially grant is what it is. We need additional legislative action to address the rapidly increasing recapture payments This is a problem for Lovejoy, as you can see in the budget projections. Where recapture payments become more and more a larger percentage of our revenue. Increasing the basic allotment would reduce recapture payments and keep more of our local dollars, our local tax dollars in Lovejoy. And with the accelerated growth, again, as you saw in the budget slides, as home prices continue to rise and as enrollment continues to decrease, that triggers recapture increases, which during those 5-year projections, you can see increase significantly year to year.
So we wanted to share with you, this was a summary that Raise Your Hand Texas put together around education savings accounts that I thought was a really good graphic. I know it may be a little hard for you in the audience to see on the screen, but this is available in the board book. You can pull it up on your home computer and take a look at that graphic. And so some of the estimates that we have received is that the probable cost of vouchers or education savings accounts may cost the state of Texas over $1 billion within 5 years. And we think regularly about what that money could do for public education. And as a reminder, public schools, we're required to accept all students. We are accountable to the state on how we spend our dollars. We're accountable on how we educate students and measuring their progress against the TEKS. We are also responsible for complying with federal and state laws, particularly around students who receive special education. Those private institutions that may accept taxpayer dollars would not be responsible for any of those accountability measures. Moving next is the Herrero Amendment. So this is current events that we were discussing regularly when we were down in Austin. So just a little bit of background in case you want to bring this into your regular dinner conversation. Is that, of course, the primary function of the Texas legislature is to pass a budget. And there will be competing versions of an appropriation bill that come out of both the House and the Senate. And then, of course, they work together to compromise to get down to a final budget. So the Texas Senate, it appears to be taking some very decisive steps towards implementation of school vouchers. When the House was debating their budget bill, there was a representative on the floor, Herrero, who proposed an amendment to the House budget that prohibited the use of taxpayer funds for school vouchers. I am summarizing here, but that's effectively what it was. And so this amendment was placed on the floor on Thursday, April 6th, and it did pass the House chamber 86 to 52, meaning that there is now an amendment in the House budget that would prohibit vouchers. So why this is significant is that it's an early indication of how the House may choose to vote on upcoming voucher legislation. While we were in Austin last week, we did take the opportunity to walk around and visit with many of the representatives that did vote for the amendment and thank them for their support of public education. And then as we've done with previous updates to the community, we have a tracker here on just bills to watch, bills that we're watching. And I think Thomas did a nice job of summarizing those. There are 2 here that do regulate transfer programs like our Lovejoy Scholar Program that may have the prohibition of charging tuition and also may mandate acceptance criteria, priority, and lottery systems for availability of seats. That could be a significant reduction of revenue here, and it could potentially impact that overall program depending on what type of rules are imposed by that legislation. That's still very much something that we're watching. Moving down to House Bill 3, this does increase the student safety allotment. This is a good news thing. We're excited about this. It would potentially increase revenue to Lovejoy ISD of $90,000 plus the increase in allotment. It would help cover the cost of our school marshal program. And next, we have the basic allotment. I know we spoke about that briefly during the budget update. There are a number of bills that were originally proposed earlier in the session to raise the basic allotment. Unfortunately, they're still in committee. And I actually went through and pulled the date of each bill, and most of them have not been touched since the first week of March. So not likely in this session. Same would be true for changing the funding formula from attendance to enrollment. Same for increasing the number of golden pennies, which I was hopeful for originally.
Last couple of bills that we're monitoring, we've talked about unfunded mandates as well. There are lots of things. They put out bills sometimes that sound great, things that we would want to accomplish, but then provide no funding to go along with it. So it's doesn't help our overall financial situation. These are a couple of those that we're monitoring for that. The last thing I would mention, we've put up here a couple of times the slide with our representatives down in Austin. If you haven't already, definitely encourage you to start the dialogue with our representatives. We've talked about emailing. In talking to our third-party resources when we visited Austin, they've really hammered home that phone calls are a lot more impactful than sending emails or letters or anything like that. So getting on the phone, you might not get the representative on the phone, but even if you get their staffers on the phone, starting to really entertain that dialogue, understanding where they stand, asking them on the House bill amendment that we referenced earlier, asking them, did they support that? Did they not? Why? And try to pin them down on how they are representing us and supporting Lovejoy ISD. And making them aware that they have a large contingency here of people that are engaged and want them to support keeping our legacy of excellence. I think that really starting that dialogue, that'd be our first call to action. There'll definitely be other calls to action when we get further along. We do anticipate that there's going to be a special session that'll go well into the summer. There will probably, as we get further along and really start to figure out which of these bills look likely to pass through committee into the full chamber and then moving forward into conference committees, those will be the times where we can get real specific. But starting that dialogue now, I think, is important. Start with our own representatives, but then we also have the next slide hammers home the committee members dealing directly with education, thanking those that have supported things like the Herrero Amendment would be appropriate, and going beyond just our own representatives. But those are the things we could be doing now and I think really have impact. I think the couple of visits we've had down there as a board to start having these conversations, I've been pleasantly surprised with how some of those conversations have gone. They've exceeded my expectations with some of the real dialogue we've been able to have beyond with our own reps, but some of the people down there really are taking the time to study these issues that will have impact on us. And so the more people from our district that can be involved in that dialogue will definitely help us.
I'll just second that motion to get involved and to call your representatives and to call the other members of the education committees. If you're looking for what to say, I'll just remind you of our legislative priorities that are published publicly. And also Katie's article in Connect with Katie on the 14th is kind of a good summary of the impact for Lovejoy. And then also there's a slide earlier in here with a little graphic off to the side that you can use for talking points.
Yeah, if you're looking for two main things to have a conversation on, the school vouchers, what they're calling the education savings accounts, that's an area that's important to focus on. The basic allotment would be the other. The basic allotment solves a lot, like I think Jeff called it the silver bullet earlier, but that is something that will definitely help us with not having to make more hard decisions around program changes, and also help us on the recapture side at the same time. So those would be the things, if you're looking for two quick things to really focus on when you're starting these conversations, those would be and look, we put together priorities for the district, but sometimes you really have to narrow it down. You have limited time, so you want to make sure you're having the right impact.
Didn't have anything positive to say, don't say it at all. Uh, My view is that something will happen with further vouchers. The governor's certainly staked a claim in his service that school vouchers, something would be done with that. That is a loser for public education at this point. I've not found anyone that can articulate how that improves public education and or increases the ability to serve students. It serves a section of students in certain areas that are underserved, but by and large, for our district, it is a loser. And it is a problem. So we have work to do. It's also a delicate balance of how we approach these legislative conversations. Not a lot of people have empathy for Lovejoy ISD. They don't have empathy for the fact that we are a property wealthy district. And so we have to be careful on how we tread through these things because we ultimately create, well, we don't receive really a lot of attention in the ways that we want to. So we are working diligently to be intelligent about how we approach these conversations. Right now, things have to move through these committees to move forward and get traction. And as you can see, most of the things we're concerned about, basic allotment, average daily attendance, those things are still stuck in committee because that's not a priority for the governor or lieutenant governor. And so they're not getting hearings. Things that are having to do with transfers, education savings accounts, and vouchers are getting hearings. That's what's receiving the attention and time. And that's where their efforts are focused currently. It's less about what schools need, more about what their ideals are. And it's unfortunate because it's we're going to pay the price for that. The unintended consequences of the legislation I'm seeing in these bills is extremely high for districts like ours and others, not just us. Some other districts, substantially more than us. We're in actually a fairly decent position compared to some schools. The time we spent speaking to folks was very good. It was one-on-one. We had face-to-face meetings with all the folks that were listed. We had meaningful conversations, some of which we pushed back pretty hard on, some of which questions they couldn't really answer. I asked the question, how are you going to take public school funds and give them to private schools and feel good about doing that? And how are you going to face the taxpayers and tell them that the money that you paid in here at Lovejoy for property taxes are going to go to fund a private school? And those private schools probably aren't going to take the kids that need to be there. They're going to turn those kids down. So the unintended consequences of these bills is very high. And so I'm keeping that as positive as I can. We're working strategically and in a way to hopefully affect the outcome for our educational experience here in Lovejoy and for public education as a whole. So
I might just add that I want to thank Katie for the work that she's done. She is on the phone and working through these things multiple times a day and really fighting for this district above and beyond her regular duties as superintendent. I do thank you for that.
thank you for the committee update. Great job. Appreciate the organization and hopefully it will help the community understand some of the things that we're dealing with. So thank you for that. Item 26 tonight, any other comments on legislative before we move on? Okay. Item 26 tonight would be cabinet reports.
Good evening again. So a quick update on the finance department and operations. So looking at our monthly financials through the end of March, we can see that we have spent about 69% of our budget, where historically we've spent 72%. We've collected about 94% of our current revenue. With our tax collections, we've collected a combined through M&O and INS, roughly $670,000 for the month of March. And we're doing what we can to manage our working capital, trying to hold on to our cash that's coming in through tax collections in our investment pools to continue to earn that interest income on there. And we saw about $120,000 in interest income for the month of March combined through the two pools. And then at the end of the month, we have about 250 days of cash on hand. And then we look at our tax collection report through the end of March. This time last year, we were about 97% of the way of collections, and we're currently at 99.5%, which is also helping us through our investment pool, having as much of that cash in there to continue to earn interest on. We still have a remaining levy about $1.5 million. Earlier this month, we came together, the Business Service Office, to provide a PD training and information for our budget assistants. Our budget assistants do the day-to-day. They enter NPOs, they monitor the budgets, they make sure to keep the budget owners on track with their budgets, meaning their budget amendments. So they're the heart and soul of getting things processed and transactions and payments through AP. So we just had a little gathering to go through what the end of the year process is. They're a vital part of helping us close out the year and preparing for the audit. We had a lot of fun that day. And as I mentioned earlier, wanted to go over the reorg that we're doing in the Business Service Office. So previously we had the CFO role, and then we had the Senior Director along with 2 other directors, so Director of Purchasing and Risk Management and Director of Business and Employee Data Integration, along with the Coordinator of Payroll, and then 2 specialists, AP specialist and a payroll specialist. What we are converting that to is we currently have a vacant position that's currently posted for a Director of Accounting. And then we've completely removed the the Director of Business and Employee Data Integration, and we just have a Financial and Compliance Analyst. So that Financial and Compliance Analyst will do a lot of the budget analysis and do the employee data integration and the position control. And then the Director of Accounting will take on a lot of the roles of the procurement and then also the day-to-day accounting. So we do have the 2 vacant positions. One is posted. The other one will be posted shortly. And then the use of our bond dollars that you approved last month. Here we show that our grounds crew and their new toys. You can tell they definitely are enjoying their new toys here. We do have some pictures of the new custodial supplies that we'll be able to show you all with the staff next month. Thank you very much.
Just going to do a quick follow-up from our, as you are aware, we are going to have teacher planning days in our calendar next year. So we have an actual definition of what those days will entail. Here you will see within the definition, you'll see flexible allocated time to allow teachers to prepare and plan, options for teachers to work remotely or to utilize the campus facilities if desired. We'll have them available. They will be protected days, so that there will not be required meetings, professional development, nor parent meetings that we're going to require teachers to attend. And this is just for our teachers. This is the definition for teachers. You will notice that last statement there, so that we can make sure we're documenting so that it's not a for use of public gift of public funds, that we will more than likely be having some type of simple process that teachers would follow to where they would just log the date and they could choose from a menu. Did they plan? Did they do grading? So that way we're just keeping our documentation. The principals would maintain that on the campus. So wanted you to be aware of that. And this has been communicated out to our staff and during our team huddles and also some of our teacher committee groups. And then just coming soon, we are working on what those days would actually look like for some of the other groups, such as our instructional aides, our clerical office staff, administrative staff here at the Red Building, library staff, child nutrition, transportation, etc. So more information coming soon on that.
Good evening. Just a quick update. Wanted to share with you kind of what our current enrollment is. We had budgeted for 4,210 students, and we are 29 and a half because we get a half ADA for a preschooler there. And something else I wanted to point out is our average daily attendance is 95.80, which I believe that's above what we had budgeted for this past year. So we are encouraging everyone to enroll, especially your kindergartners if you have not. Our kindergarten enrollment is fairly it's not where we'd like it to be just yet. So we know that there are more out there, but we're encouraging kindergartners and our parents to get out there and enroll so we can start getting ready for the fall. Also, just wanted to, I don't give much of a communication update, but I wanted to share just some things that we've been doing. I've been working with Kim Steiner in the communication department, and just updates, some of the things that we use for parent staff communication. Bright Arrow, you probably have seen those come. The great thing about Bright Arrow is we can send an email, we can do a phone call and a text all at the same time. So quickly communicating that was something that was new software from last year. Also, we're really strategically trying to get an article in the Fairview Town News every month, sponsoring the community partner programs that they also donate to advertisement and Connect with Katie, some of those types of things. Campaigns we're working on, kindergarten roundup, summer camps, all that comes through the communications department. And of course, staff appreciation recognitions, everything from Heart of Teacher to just recognizing certain days, staff and employees there. We get a lot of questions about Connect with Katie. We do 38 weekly issues, and that is sent out to over 7,500 community members, staff, and parents. And I'm real proud of that because we have a lot of people reading that, and we'd like to increase our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram followers. So I put those handles there. And that's kind of where we are coming from communications. Questions? Thank you.
Good evening. I get to update you on some of the happenings in student services, and this is the time of year where we get to celebrate a lot of our groups, and I wanted to start off with our fine arts groups, some of our fine arts groups. As you know, our UIL competitions for our fine arts groups is just kind of like their star competitions. This is where the culmination of their year-long of hard work really comes together, and they get to show off all the things that they've learned. Just like in our academic classrooms, all the standards that they're supposed to meet, they get to show them off during their UIL competitions. And we can receive, we do really well. We have some really high-performing band groups, orchestra groups, choir groups, and all of the superior ratings and the excellence ratings are all well and good. But really, I think where we stand out is some of the comments that our judges get to make to our groups. And so they provide us feedback and make comments to us, because the judges travel around to different competitions, and they see not just our day of competition, but they see competitions from many different high schools, 5A, 6A, all the area high schools. And we get feedback such as, and I'm not going to share them all with you, but I included one from band, that the students are masterfully demonstrating superior commitment to the excellence in individual sound, section work, and ensemble skills. And I think this just is a small piece of the pie as far as the difficulty of the music that our students perform and how excellent that they do. Not only was it in band, orchestra, the comments that we received from the judges were just spectacular, in choir as well. So I just wanted to give a thank you to our UIL directors, our band director, choir, orchestra directors, for all the work that they put in to give our kids such a good experience in those three areas. And this is just our high school. Our middle school does the same. They compete in UIL activities, and their performances were spectacular too. Our one-act play competed in their regional competition this past Saturday. They just missed. This was kind of like their playoffs, right? They just missed advancing on to the state competition, but they advanced to the regional competition, which is further than we've gone in a few years. They had a great show, and Ms. Brewster and her kiddos did just a fantastic job. So I wanted to give a shout out to Ms. Brewster. If you were able to see the Majestics, I want to couple the Majestics and our choir pop show together. If you're a child of the 80s, which I am, you had a piece of music or a piece of work, if you will, from the Majestics, a piece of their show that you could sing along to and it had a little bit different meaning to you. So anytime that they play 80s music, it gets my attention a little bit. But the Majestic show, just like it is every year, was fantastic. The pop show from our choir was titled Decades. So it took you through from the 50s all the way up to current music, and it was a fantastic show as well. Our golf, as we've mentioned before earlier tonight, our girls golf team for the first time in school history are moving on to the state tournament, which is going to be May, I believe, the 15th and the 16th. You can see by the young ladies here, they're pretty excited about that. Our track just wrapped up their area track meet this past week. They're going to be moving on plenty of runners and jumpers to the state track meet down in Austin in the upcoming weeks. And our baseball and softball teams are wrapping up district, and they're ready to make a deep they're ready to make deep playoff runs as well. So it's really exciting these last 4 or 5 weeks of school to be able to compete at the state level. So I'm very happy to say it, that in our May board meeting, we're going to have a lot more student recognitions from students who are competing at the state level. So that's exciting. And finally, as far as safety and security, we'll be conducting safety audits at each of our facilities during the month of May. We're required to do this once every 3 years, and then we're doing this internally with the guidance of the Texas School Safety Center. And so just a piece of what these audits consist of: we're going to be interviewing staff members. We'll of course meet with campus administration. We're going to be doing building checks and intruder audits as well during those times. And so we've already picked chosen days where our team will be visiting the campuses. At the end of that audit on that particular day for the campus, we'll do kind of a post audit review with the campus principal on that day to give them any findings that we see need to be addressed immediately, and then we'll provide a report to them and to the board in September on what our findings are. So you'll be getting that report at the September board meeting. Any questions?
Great. Thank you very much, Ms. Cordell.
I want to celebrate our girls golf team and congratulate them on going to state. That'll happen in May. We're really excited about that because that's the first time in Lovejoy history. Also want to recognize our dyslexia teachers and the students that came this evening to share with us the miracle of reading and the magic of books, which we never take for granted because that is such an important thing. And our dyslexia therapists are absolute life changers with the work that they do. There's actually a high school student that almost every time I interact with them, they'll share with me the remarkable difference that their dyslexia therapist made. And they always want to tell me the amazing things that they're doing at high school, and they never saw themselves being that successful of a student. So I hope our dyslexia teachers know the profound impact that they have on our kids. And then I want to give my heartfelt condolences to the Brannell family. Many of us were at Alyssa's funeral and services this past weekend. She was our beloved PEAMS clerk over at Hart Elementary, and she was an absolute bright light in our district. And so heartfelt condolences to her parents, her husband Craig, and Carson and Caden, her junior sons. Alyssa was really special. She made every person, student or adult, that came into that building feel loved and seen. There were a number of students that their daily routine was to come by and see her and have a good morning, and that was something they needed every day to make sure that their day got off to a great start. And so the Brannell family is definitely in our hearts, as well as Hart Elementary, because I know they're mourning the loss of a good friend and a beloved colleague.
Thank you for those updates, Ms. Cordell. All right, 28 public comments related to non-agenda items.
Okay, good evening, President Owens. We have 7 public comments related to non-agenda items. I believe they've already read our public comment procedures. First one up is Mr. Shoemake. If you want to step up to the mic, and I will turn on the timer.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Shoemake. I have one student in Lovejoy High School. The school board and the administration continue to make poor decisions that negatively impact students, teachers, and taxpayers. The most recent example impacts the tennis coach, his son, and the students in the tennis program. Last year, 1 year ago, all the tennis staff resigned from Lovejoy ISD. So last summer, Lovejoy was looking for a new coach. They ultimately hired a gentleman named Brad Wicks, Coach Wicks. He comes from a tennis family. His father's a longtime coach at Permian. Permian Tennis Center is named after him. Coach Wicks himself has 22 years of coaching experience. He came in, he replaced two people. He came in at the last minute. He took over a program managing 136 players for the district. He immediately faced obstacles. He had no support from the administration. He had to be in a new employee workshop. At the same time, he had tryouts. He was told he had to run a camp. He had no support for that. He had no tennis budget. He had to depend on the booster club for basic things like buying tennis balls and fixing nets at the court. I saw him at a tournament in Sherman. I asked him how he was doing. He's a new coach. I asked him how he was doing. He said, not so good. He said, I've got a board member that is not happy with one of my decisions. He said, the board member isn't happy that I have a policy that if a player's hurt, they don't go to travel tournaments. And the board member disagreed with that, disagreed. You know what? Coach Wicks was right. So we had problems with administrators and someone on the board coming at him from the very start. He had a basketball coach coming and timing his drills, telling him he wasn't efficient. So how did he do? How did he do in his first year? Well, he won the district with varsity. He won the district with JV. He went into the playoffs. He formed relationships with players and parents. He hosted tournaments on the weekend. He went above and beyond the call of duty, and he hosted tournaments on the weekend. How was he repaid last week? He was asked to resign. He was called in for an annual review. They said, we're not going to do your annual review. We want you to resign. He was asked to resign 3 times in that same day. So he was forced out. This is not becoming of Lovejoy. It's not anything that Lovejoy should be proud of. It sets the tennis program back 2 years at least, in the word of one board member. My son, we've been in the district for 3 years. My son has seen 5 coaches. Only one of them is left in the district. So if you're thinking about coming to this district as a coach, think twice. You got about a 20% chance of making it more than a year or two, because the turnover is extremely high. And so, and you know what, there's not a lot of empathy. We reached out to you to ask you to put us on your agenda. You didn't. Yet you ask us to call state representatives and lobby on your behalf. You need to look at yourself, right? When we reach out to you, you need to be responsive to us.
Next up.
Ms. Shoemake? Ms. Shoemake, you're up next.
We will always make decisions in the best interests of our students. We take the experiences that students have in our classrooms and on the court very seriously. That is what someone from Lovejoy administration sent in an email. I would like to illuminate a double standard that you have with regards to whom you retain and who is asked to resign. Our family has observed 2 sports programs at Lovejoy High School. A Lovejoy basketball coach gambled with his players at a coach-mandated event. Subsequently, those pictures were posted on SportsU. A Lovejoy basketball coach forced all juniors in the basketball program last year to not take the Pilot Star U.S. History exam and instead head to the gym to practice basketball without seeking approval from admin or even, say, parents. A Lovejoy basketball coach cut players from a team after players were given uniforms, team pictures were taken, booster club donations were made, spirit wear was purchased, and those kids played for 3.5 months. When Mrs. Cordell closed schools early last year due to the icy road conditions, a Lovejoy basketball coach told players via SportsU to head to the gym to practice, leave an academic class immediately, because basketball practice was more important than player safety. A Lovejoy basketball coach loaded a bus with varsity players and headed to a neutral site of an upcoming playoff game, not telling anyone where they were going, funneled everyone through a side door that was secretly left open, had everyone practice for an hour telling players, everybody be quiet while we're here. This happens to be very much against UIL rules because the opponent was not afforded the same opportunity to practice at that neutral site. A basketball player was forced to run stairs as punishment last year after he failed to inform that basketball coach that he was going to tutoring prior to his first period basketball class. This young man's mother was serving her country bravely overseas. He was being raised by an older brother, but he was punished for going to tutoring. This basketball coach still has his job. He's still on your payroll today. Coach Wicks did not do any of those things, not one, but you asked for his resignation. So you can't say, trust us, we're doing what is in the best interests of our students, but then completely turn a blind eye to the things that are absolutely not in the best interest of our children. Because at that point, you lose all credibility with your Lovejoy families. Thank you.
Tracy Rockney.
Good evening. My name is Tracy Rockney. My daughter is Morgan Ward. She's an 8th grader at Willow and is a tennis player. With the actions of last week, the Lovejoy Tennis Booster Club is here today to ensure the continued support, growth, and success of the Lovejoy Tennis program. Among us today are many parents and students who invest countless hours and money into their sport. With the departure of Coach Wisk, we do not want to be in the same situation as last year, with a new coach being hired 2 weeks prior to the start of the school year, with tennis events scheduled to start prior to school, and no documented ranking of players with little to no information transferred from the prior coach. Our expectation is that a high-performing coaching team will be identified and hired as soon as feasible so that our tennis players will have the benefit of practicing as a team this summer to prepare for the fall season. As a Booster Club board, we will gladly participate in this process. Our kids deserve the best, and we are here to ensure you deliver. The current Lovejoy tennis program has 136 kids across high school and middle school and 1 coach. This is not sustainable to build a high-performing tennis team. In prior years, we had 2 coaches. Do not treat the middle school program like a gym class and allow a large number of students. Tennis requires much more specialized coaching. We require coaches that will actually coach our kids during practice and matches, host UTR and USTA tournaments on weekends at Lovejoy High School to help build the reputation of Lovejoy as a tennis center of excellence, and will actively participate in Booster Club meetings. All of the things Coach Wisk did, but the coaches prior to Coach Wisk did not do, and yet they were maintained on the Lovejoy payroll for years. Prior coaches were no more than attendance monitors with a clipboard. And we request your future participation in our tennis program. Come out to observe our student athletes as they practice, attend a match of these amazing tennis players who won districts this year, and join us in our Booster Club fundraiser in a few weeks and play doubles with one of our students. Most important, share the successes of our tennis players throughout the year. They were rarely mentioned in any of the district news and social media this year. Tennis is a sport of integrity, where our children are both the player and the line judge, and they are judged by their opponents, spectators, their peers, and other parents on every point and with every call they make. Your actions in supporting the tennis program over the next weeks and months as we onboard a new coaching team will be critical and carefully watched. Demonstrate your integrity and respect for the hard work our students put into tennis every day after school and on weekends by identifying a coaching team that these students have earned. As members of the Tennis Booster Club and parents of children in the program, we saw a positive demonstrated turn around in the tennis program at Lovejoy under Coach Wisk without much support. We expect the next coaching team to build on this momentum. A district of the prestige and rank of Lovejoy deserves nothing less. Thank you.
Curtis Peters.
Curtis Peters. I have 2 kids in the district. One is an 8th grade tennis player. I think everybody has kind of identified the headwinds that Coach Wicks had. I think what I want to say is that these tennis families that have competitive players, they spend hundreds and hundreds of hours on the courts. We get the privilege of spending dozens and dozens of hours watching them. In my view, Most of us are pretty successful in the private sector. We build teams, we evaluate talent, right? We've spent hours and hours and hours watching Wicks with our kids at matches, at UTR events that he set up, and spent his own personal time running. We also saw him with the JV and the varsity teams out on the courts. We're out at Lovejoy High School hours and hours and hours, and we get to see what he does, who he is, how he builds the players up. You know, our boys are 13 going on 14 last year. They're walking around, their heads are down, their shoulders are down, they're slumped. They don't have a coach that has their back. They get locked out of the school by other football players and basketball players, et cetera. The coach wasn't there to defend them. He didn't care. He didn't show up. Canceled practice as often as he could, showed up late. And then you have Coach Wicks come in, right? Completely set a new standard for those kids. Part of his talk that we don't get to do at home or get listened to at home is to put the shoulders back and chin up, right? Be proud of yourself, be proud of who you are. He did a great job with that. I think what everybody is trying to say here is that, you know, by doing things the way they've done and the incongruency between what we see and what has happened as far as the decision of the administration, we lose trust. Right? How do the kids trust you? How do the parents trust you when we see this massive gap between what we see and what you guys have decided, right? And the other thing that they don't get to do is have closure, right? They have no idea why their coach was fired. My son loved him to death. He lost a big brother. He lost a father figure, a mentor, somebody who had morals, who stood up for what was right in every experience that I've had with him. And there have been a lot. So I just think that you guys need to think about how you're going to rebuild this trust with this community and with these kids. Thank you.
Mustafa?
So thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak today. And I'm kind of heartened by listening to all these folks here. I mean, I think it's an amazing community that we're a part of. The passion is pretty tremendous. So my name is Dr. Mustafa Dodwala. My wife, Dr. Tasneem over there, both of us are kind of have the similar thoughts. Our son Adnan is an 8th grader, and he's going to be going to Lovejoy High School. Super excited at tennis, and over the past year, we've just kind of seen him grow his love for tennis, and tennis has brought him a confidence, and it's brought him a connection to a tribe that he didn't have over the past several years in the school district, to be honest with you. And so I really wanted to make two kind of major points. Point number one is, you know, that the separation of employment with Coach Wicks just concerns me because I think it was hastily done. I'm not really sure if there's any real clear reason why it was done. I haven't heard as of yet, and news travels quickly. And so when there's a real issue that comes about, we hear it, and we haven't heard that. And there was almost no input with us as parents, as children. And I completely echo all the thoughts of the lack of engagement from administration at tennis tournaments. When we're there, we don't see anybody there other than Coach Wicks. And it's not like we're seeing other people engaged and celebrating our kids' successes. And so that's one thing. He fostered team play, camaraderie, victories on and off the tennis court. You know, when Adnan lost a game at the end of a match, he talked to him about how to get your head, you know, right so you can win on the court and off the court. And those things are just, people can't understand unless they were in those situations. On the day that Adnan found out that his coach was leaving, he told us it was the worst day of his life, and my son is not prone to hyperbole. So that was just heartbreaking for me to see that. He found out through a text message, which I can't imagine when the person you adore the most in your school, you find out in that way. And so without articulation of a clear reason for separating with Coach Wicks, I'd ask the board and the school district to reconsider. I think he's been a tremendous asset. My second point is that the board needs to place emphasis on the Lovejoy tennis program. We need a dedicated coach and who teaches life lessons through tennis. And I think what's really important is you need a coach who teaches life lessons through tennis, but also is interested in those kids who are most passionate about tennis, right? So varsity basketball team, the basketball coach focuses on them, right? And so if there are kids who are playing tennis 5 days a week, let's not forget that those are the kids whose life is tennis. And Coach Wicks was great at fostering those kind of kids. And so that's kind of where I come from it. And thanks for listening.
Amy, you're up next.
Good evening. My name is Amy Trithall, and I have the unique position of serving as the current Lovebird Aces Booster Club president, as well as being a parent of the only current senior in the entire district to have participated in the Lovejoy tennis program for the past 6 years. I don't share that to boast, however, only to highlight that having only one senior in that position should serve as a key indicator that the tennis program is struggling. I would like to share my son Matthew's Lovejoy tennis experience in his own words. Quote, I have been part of the Lovejoy tennis program for the past 6 years. I have enjoyed my experiences and I've had a lot of fun. However, there are definitely things that could be improved. The first thing that I thought of is there is a lack of accountability between coaches and players. Missing practices and not showing effort has gone without punishment, and it is the norm. Practices have never had the intensity that you would find at an out-of-school program such as the Lakes or at the courts in McKinney. This was especially prevalent with our previous coaches. While I did like my coaches, they never seemed interested in putting in the effort to ensure success. In fact, it wasn't until some redistricting occurred last year that one coach said, quote, now that we have a chance, I'll start coaching, unquote. That last part was really difficult to hear as a parent and sent a clear message to our son that the coaches were not invested in the program. The following is a portion of the mission statement and beliefs of the Lovejoy ISD program of Department of Athletics. Quote, Leopard Athletics will provide the opportunity for all student athletes to pursue and understand the values of attitude, commitment, responsibility, accountability, work ethic, and team. We believe in maintaining an uncompromising commitment to district and state championships by providing each student athlete with the tools necessary to win at the highest level of competition, unquote. Based on Matthew's experience, and his is not unique, if the mission statement and the athletic department beliefs were used as a rubric to grade our tennis program, I'm not sure it would receive a passing grade. We need to look to build the tennis program by actually using these as our guide. We are not looking back, nor are we interested in dwelling in the past. We need to focus on building a successful program, starting with quality coaching. A great tennis program just doesn't happen. It begins in elementary school with junior development programs, summer tennis camps, and continues in middle school and high school with UTR tournaments. These are all imperative tools to build a successful program so the incoming tennis athletes can have the experience and preparation that are needed for the vigors of high-level competition. This won't happen without a coach who exemplifies our mission statement and is committed to the athletic department of statement of beliefs. Let us work together so that we can ensure a positive experience for each of our student athletes that they'll want to be a part of year after year.
Thank you, Amy. All right, last but not least, we have Miss Michelle. You're up next.
Good evening. I am Michelle Van Rensburg. I have 2 kids in this tennis program. One is currently an 8th grader and the other is currently a sophomore. My comments will be on Coach Wicks' termination as well. Compromise is a valuable tool in the hands of leadership because we don't live in a perfect world. Never compromise an institution's values as they are guidance for the health and prosperity of the institution. Rather, compromise on imperfections for the sake of the institution's values. If not, your values become meaningless and your institution will certainly suffer consequences. This past week, it became apparent that Lovejoy ISD severely compromised its values instead of the imperfections in the workplace. In the district's email dated April 21st, we read the termination is in the best interest of the district. Termination should align with our core value, kids come first, and termination should therefore be in the best interest of our kids. The vast majority of those kids and their parents want Coach Wicks to resume his position. The way he redeemed tennis for this district is miraculous. He has set such a high standard that it became a daunting expectation for any successor to fill those shoes. This tennis community will certainly hold the district to exactly that and more, because I can confidently promise you Coach Wicks had more to offer, was it not for the district's sudden kill of the action. Let's pray you again receive that once-in-a-lifetime candidate application in this time where the district stressed to us how difficult it is to retain and recruit good teachers. It is, in my humble opinion, madness that the district went ahead and shot that argument full of holes by letting go of exactly such a teacher. The tennis community has been commending and praising Coach Wicks' success to you since the beginning of his hire. If you were unaware or doubted the appreciation, the connection, and the love the vast majority of parents and students have for this coach, let me then assure you it's real, alive and well, and they all want him reinstated in his position. To terminate by the whim of a disgruntled or unhappy few, or to terminate because he was never supposed to be so successful and just fill the year, all in the face of his performance and the support you now know he has, is another compromise of the district's core values. One heart, one Lovejoy. Such foolish compromise come with devastating permanent damage to the institution. Make no mistake, the community notices. Trust and credibility are fragile. Core values lose its shine. Money is mobile. And at that pivotal moment, the district risks losing its most valuable asset, continued community, empathy, and investment. I yield my time.
That's all the public comments we have for this evening.